Chapter 661, Undercurrent Surges, a Clash in the Peaceful Streets. In the Kingdom of Bhutan, the night was serene, untouched by the pollution of industrial smoke. Stars twinkled brightly above, casting a soft glow on the stone paths below. The air was crisp and fresh, a testament to the untouched beauty of this place. Theodore, navigating these paths, came to a halt as he encountered another wizard who also stopped in his tracks. They exchanged a brief nod, an unspoken acknowledgement, before continuing on their way. However, in the fleeting moment they passed each other, both noticed the tight grip each had on their wands. Without a word, they simultaneously raised their wands, spells ready. Impedimento! Theodore cast, just as the other wizard shouted, Stupefy! Theodore, nursing a bleeding nose from the clash, eyed his opponent who, despite being hit, hadn't fallen. Determined, Theodore raised his wand again, casting another, Stupefy. This time, his opponent was sent flying, crashing to the ground. Theodore's heart raced. Is he here for me? He wondered. The wizard's immediate attack seemed too calculated, too precise. Could it be that Inger's men had caught wind of their plans? Dragging the unconscious man into hiding, Theodore pressed on, guided by the locations he had scouted during the day. The astral disciples had been monitoring a Polish wizard's movements, and with Lippy's data, they were close to identifying the infiltrator. As the night deepened in Bhutan, several areas began to light up with the glow of spells being cast. Oxer narrowly avoided an attack, retaliating with a spell of his own. But when a red light struck him from behind, causing his amulet to fall, the attacker hesitated, giving Oxer the chance to bind him with a spell. Before the trapped wizard could scream, his mouth was magically sealed. This isn't right, Oxer frowned, realizing their targets had switched locations. It wasn't just him. Others had noticed the discrepancy too. The situation escalated when a green light struck down a British auror, marking the first casualty of the night. The attackers, bearing the emblem of the Deathly Hallows, moved with the stealth of vipers, their ambushes deadly and precise. In the midst of this chaos, Theodore realized their true target. They want to attack Minister Crouch, he deduced, understanding the aggressive stance of his opponents. They aimed to preemptively strike. With this realization, Theodore apparated away, reappearing on the street outside Barty Crouch Sr.'s residence. A wizard was already there, wand raised. Without hesitation, Theodore cast Petrificus Totalis, but the spell was thwarted by an iron armor curse. The wizard retaliated with a fireball, which Theodore blocked with a shield, countering with a stunning spell. Another amulet. Theodore cursed under his breath, realizing the extent of their preparation. Knowing the urgency, Theodore sent a spark into the sky, a signal for reinforcements. He expected his opponent to retreat, but instead, a burst of flames sent him flying, his face scraping against the ground. Despite the pain, Theodore disapparated just in time to avoid another explosion. The assailant was relentless, forcing Theodore to dodge and counter with petrification spells. It was clear the attacker had no intention of letting him go easily. Theodore realized he needed to change his strategy if he was to survive this encounter and protect Minister Crouch. The night in Bhutan, once peaceful, was now a battleground for wizards, the stakes higher than ever. The killing curse was not something Theodore could easily hide from. He had fortified himself with layers of iron armor spells to block the incoming attacks. The assailants continued their relentless assault on him. Damn! Theodore cursed under his breath as he sought refuge behind a house, taking a moment to catch his breath. His fingers trembled slightly at the thought of what he was about to do. The heavy weight of taking a human life weighed on his conscience. Did he truly possess the malice required to cast such a spell? He took a deep breath, his mind flashing back to the battle at Hogwarts. Back then, he lacked the courage to use the killing curse. But what about now? With a determined shout of Avada Kedavra, Theodore emerged from his hiding spot. His wand raised, he unleashed the spell. A burst of green light shot from the tip of his wand, striking the wizard head-on. The wizard's face, filled with astonishment, quickly paled as his life was snuffed out, his body collapsing to the ground. Theodore gasped for air, feeling a wetness under his nose. Wiping it away, he realized it was a nosebleed. This was his first kill. The realization hit him hard. Taking a life was as silent and final as the death of an animal. The killing curse was undeniably dark magic, a symbol of Theodore's departure from innocence. Now he truly began to walk the path of following the Dark Lord, his resolve strengthened. Meanwhile, John was deeply concerned about his father. During the day, McCoff had visited Watson to search for a missing weapon. John arrived at the scene later that night. He examined the molten wall, which was no ordinary barrier. It was a high-strength structure designed to withstand explosions, reinforced with steel plates embedded in the outer layer of cement. Melting it would require an intense heat. John sensed something more: magic. His eyes transformed into vertical pupils as he inspected the still warm wall. Magic, he muttered, noticing the chaos particles lingering in the air, remnants of magical use. Fiendfire, he deduced. This was no ordinary fiendfire. It was far more powerful than what a typical wizard could conjure. Under the guise of a disillusionment charm, John ventured inside. The armory stored not only the missing missiles, but also several fighter jets and numerous undisclosed weapons. Despite the presence of guards, it seemed no one had discovered the breach. John considered the possibility of a confusion charm being used to cover the intruder's tracks. The fact that the intruder could enter without being detected by apparition suggested familiarity with the base's layout. Wizards and armies? John pondered the odd pairing. Casting a tracking spell, he revealed numerous footprints around him. As he cast backtracking, the scene around him began to rewind, revealing the events of the previous day. The wall was intact until a middle-aged military officer led a young man inside. The base personnel saluted the officer, but John's attention was fixed on the young man, a wizard. The young wizard's indifference was palpable as he cast a confusion curse, sending the base's personnel into disarray. However, the middle-aged officer remained unaffected. Soon after, the walls melted away, creating a large opening through which someone entered and levitated the missiles out of the gap. As the vision faded, John was left with more questions than answers. It seems a wizard is involved, but why would that person assist the wizard, he wondered. The middle-aged man's high rank and apparent collusion with the wizard added layers of complexity to the mystery. The situation was peculiar, to say the least. Not only was there a wizard involved, but there was also collaboration with the wizard. No matter how one looked at it, the circumstances were quite strange. We can't dismiss the possibility that he was under the Imperious Curse when he entered, John mused. The Imperious Curse, while powerful, was not without its limitations. A strong will could render one immune to its effects. Despite their lack of magical knowledge, Muggles were not necessarily inferior to wizards in terms of spirit and determination. This was particularly true for those in positions of power, who often possessed an unwavering, ironclad will, making them difficult to control. The notion of using the Imperious Curse to manipulate high-ranking officials was inherently risky. In times of war, military generals, hardened by battle and adversity, could potentially break free from the curse's grasp. John's confusion deepened as he considered the unfolding events. First, there was a theft, followed by a wizard's involvement, and now, Muggle officials collaborating with wizards. What was their endgame? A sense of foreboding washed over John as his intuition signaled danger. Could this be happening in other countries as well? He wondered aloud. A vast conspiracy seemed to be unraveling before him. Was it conceivable that multiple countries had individuals collaborating with wizards, all agreeing to commence their theft simultaneously? And the stolen weapons, where would they ultimately end up? The implications were alarming. A network of collusion between Muggles and wizards on an international scale suggested a plot of significant magnitude. The potential for widespread chaos and conflict loomed large, prompting John to question the true motives behind these mysterious alliances and thefts. The urgency to uncover the truth and thwart any nefarious plans became paramount as John delved deeper into the mystery. Chapter 662, Sky Castle, Cheeling. As dawn's light streaked across the long walls of the Kingdom of Bhutan, it revealed a scene of quiet aftermath. The night had been one of struggle, yet now only the silent remnants of smoke lingered. The events of the previous night seemed unknown to many. Theodore, leaning against the wall, bore scabs of blood where his skin had been torn. He watched in silence as the supporters reappeared, their laughter filling the air, oblivious to the tragedy that had unfolded. Oxer's clothes bore a scorched mark the size of a human head, a testament to the previous day's close brush with death. Between them lay a tall figure, peaceful in death, his wand, resembling a rolling pin, still clutched tightly in his hand, though his often-used hook was now broken. The scaffold had claimed another life. This man, whose life seemed filled with untold stories, had his final chapter ended by an explosive spell and the deadly green light of a curse, silencing him forever. Such is the cruelty of battle. No one is immortal, Oxer remarked, glancing at Theodore. What we do is akin to licking blood off our wounds. His death was not a surprise, Theodore responded hoarsely, a hint of sorrow in his voice. It just feels wrong. Uncomfortable? Oxer sneered quietly. Such sentiments are for the weak. He may have died, but his sacrifices won't be in vain, Oxer continued. Endless killings, his death might even be considered a mercy. He believed that the Silver Hand would not let the death of a star apprentice go unavenged. Death, in their line of work, often opened opportunities for the family left behind. They didn't need to know each other well. They were all too aware that death was an inevitable end for them. It was all about the value one could extract from life before facing death. Sinister's demise on his mission to assist Barty Sr. would ensure his family was well compensated. Oxer's glance at Theodore, who seemed lost in thought, was a silent command to regain focus. Cheer up, we still have tasks to complete. Oxer's philosophy differed from others. He sought strength and lived his life in preparation for the ultimate confrontation. Yes, there's more to achieve, Theodore affirmed, finding a new resolve. He wanted to live, not to meet his end now. With Not gone, he was the last one standing, and his life held potential value for the future. As the sun reached its zenith, the elections were set to begin. Supporters climbed the ladder that seemed to stretch into the sky, their chants echoing. Barty Sr. had the advantage in numbers. Witnessing this, old Barty exchanged a knowing nod with Lippy, signaling the next phase of their plan. The Aurors, having suffered attacks the previous night, were diminished in number, but those remaining were tasked with carrying the body upwards. Barty Sr. planned to expose Inger publicly, positioning himself as the new hero and securing his election to the International Federation of Wizards without contest. This move would thwart Grindelwald's attempts to meddle with the secrecy law and ensure Barty Sr.'s victory. However, Barty Sr. harbored concerns. The enemy's attack mirrored his own, indicating that Inger was aware of his intentions. The question of what Inger planned to do next weighed heavily on him. As the candidates made their way to the Sky Castle, Barty Sr. set off, accompanied by a sense of unease. The Aurors and Star Troopers took separate paths, wary of a potential public assassination attempt. Pierce, visibly anxious, was not comforted by the thought of facing Grindelwald, known for his ease in dispatching Aurors. They won't dare to strike in public, Barty Sr. assured him, sensing his nervousness. Such an act would provoke the wrath of all wizards. Pierce, still worried, suggested seeking help from Lord Wick. Barty Sr., however, expressed a desire for a reciprocal relationship rather than one-sided reliance. We've already alerted the International Federation of Wizards, Barty Sr. stated confidently. No matter Grindelwald's power, he cannot stand against all wizards. Pierce felt a measure of relief at Barty Sr.'s words as they continued on their path, uncertain of what awaited them. Inge adjusted his green tie, examining his reflection in the mirror. Star, will you ever regret our choices? He asked, his voice tinged with a mix of hope and uncertainty. Their recent defeat weighed heavily on them, casting a shadow of doom over their cause. Star Rosier, seated on the sofa, gazed at the empty scabbard of Bloodblade, a symbol of their struggle. From the day we made our pact, Star began, his voice steady yet reflective, everything we've done was in pursuit of restoring magic to its former glory. Make magic great again, Inge echoed, a determined smile forming on his lips as he secured his tie. He glanced out the window at the serene blue sky, finding a moment of peace amidst the turmoil. Let's guide those who have lost their way back to the true path of magic, he declared, extending his hand to Star. Make magic great again. Star responded with renewed vigor, accepting Inge's hand and rising from the sofa. Together, they stepped outside, leaving behind a room where 20 lives had been claimed by the killing curse or the explosive curse. Now only Star stood by Inge's side, their journey to the pinnacle of the magical world marked by solitude and sacrifice. Today, they were determined to change the course of magic forever. Theodore struggled to stand, his body swaying with the effort. Oxer, observing his struggle, expressed his disdain. "In your current state, you're nothing but a liability." "I can manage," Theodore insisted, gritting his teeth against the pain. "Don't be a burden," Oxer retorted coldly, deciding not to assist Theodore further. "You can stay here." Despite Theodore's determination, Oxer cast a sleeping spell, rendering him unconscious. "I didn't expect you to show mercy," Gemini remarked, appearing beside the fallen Theodore. Oxer scoffed. "He's just a liability. We can't afford to let Barty Crouch Sr. die en route." "Of course," Gemini's middle brother replied with a slight smile, as they set off to ensure Barty Sr.'s safety. Meanwhile, Lippy and the remaining Aurors were busy securing the bodies with a traceless stretching spell, vigilant of their surroundings as they prepared to transport them. The election for the new leader of the International Federation of Wizards was a momentous occasion, drawing the attention of the magical community worldwide. The ancient origins of magic were palpable as Old Batty stepped forward, greeted by Robin Spencers of the Fellowship of the Researcher. Spencers, representing the Association of Drillers from the Himalayas, smiled warmly at the candidates and their supporters gathered for the election. With the previous president's dishonorable departure, it was Spencers who presided over the event. As the candidates took their places, their supporters waved banners below, and dignitaries from European and other ministries watched intently. Aurors patrolled the castle roofs, ensuring the event's security. Spencer, using a loud spell, began his address. "Our magic is like hidden pearls, awaiting our discovery," he proclaimed. He spoke of the challenges faced by the magical community and the vacancy left by the previous leader. To move forward, we must elect a new leader, one of extraordinary intelligence and fairness. As Spencer spoke of hope and fairness, a young creature emerged, resembling a deer but covered in scales. The crowd gasped in awe at the sight of the Kirin, a symbol of hope and a new beginning for the magical world. Chapter 663, The Holy Man's Ridiculous Plan. The moment Spencer laid eyes on the unicorn, memories of Grindelwald's past actions surfaced in his mind. He watched intently as the unicorn approached with graceful strides. With a gentle smile, Spencer squatted down and extended his arms to embrace the young unicorn. "Very good, good boy," he praised, addressing the astonished onlookers. "An old friend of mine discovered this unicorn and invited the little one here," he explained, dispelling any notion that Grindelwald had orchestrated this event. The Researchers Association, a prestigious magical research society, counted Spencer among its elders. His magical prowess was legendary, far beyond Grindelwald's influence over such a distinguished wizard. Spencer's reputation was such that he had no need to curry favor with anyone. "After the candidates have made their cases, let the unicorn choose our new leader," Spencer suggested, affectionately patting the unicorn's head. The creature seemed to take a liking to the elderly man, its round, grape-like eyes scanning the four candidates. Odom Teak was the first to speak, his passionate oration captivating his supporters who waved their flags and cheered. His advocacy for adventure and exploration resonated with the American mainstream, aligning with Spencer's own beliefs. Next was Jing Jiang, who championed equality and peace, advocating for non-interference in the affairs of other nations. Her stance won over many neutrals, amplifying the support for her candidacy. Then it was Inge's turn. Spencer observed him with a mix of warmth and scrutiny. Having been in contact with the International Federation of Wizards, Spencer recognized the Schmidt family crest and was somewhat predisposed by Old Batty's insights. Inge's association with Grindelwald cast a shadow over his identity in Spencer's eyes. Grindelwald's era was one of awe and fear, and Spencer, having dedicated his life to the study of magic, was well aware of Grindelwald's methods. Embracing the unicorn, Spencer aimed to protect it from becoming another victim of Grindelwald's dark schemes. Other dignitaries in the magical community, alerted to Inge's potential connection to Grindelwald, watched him closely. Inge, standing before the crowd, amplified his voice with his wand. "Magic is dying," he declared, silencing his supporters. "The magic we once took pride in, considered miraculous, is in decline. He illustrated his point by lighting his wand, then extinguishing it. Light, once a wizard's unique gift, now competes with Muggle technology like electric lights. They may not know magic, but their technology replicates our miracles, diminishing our uniqueness. Inge's words struck a chord, prompting deep reflection. The skies and seas that were once ours are being claimed by Muggles with their airplanes, forcing wizards who once flew freely to hide, he lamented. We must adapt, strengthen ourselves, and restore magic to its rightful glory. In this world, only the strong survive. We must become stronger. Let magic be great again. After a moment of passionate cheering from his supporters, Inge regained his composure. Gazing at the peaceful Bhutanese sky, he concluded, "Thank you." As he walked back, his gaze met Spencer's, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Old Barty smiled and said, "It's your turn, Crouch." Barty Crouch Sr. took a deep breath and stepped forward. His presence commanded attention. What Barty Sr. represented was a vision of a harmonious society for all to witness. Academically, he was unparalleled among the four candidates, having defeated Voldemort, incarcerated Death Eaters, initiated a series of progressive policies, and championed the rights of werewolves. In terms of experience, he was the most seasoned, having lived through Voldemort's reign of terror and vied for the position of Minister of Magic. With decades of service in the Ministry of Magic, his administrative expertise was unmatched. His reputation was also impeccable, celebrated by the Second Dynasty and heralded by the Old Alliance. Simply standing there, he fulfilled all the criteria to be the new leader. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man arrived at the defense base. After addressing inquiries about missing weapons, he entered his office. Upon closing the door, he was surprised to find someone sitting in his chair, facing away from him. The middle-aged man frowned, drew his gun, and demanded, "Raise your hands and turn around slowly." "Do you not remember me?" The seated man turned slowly, revealing the face of the wizard identified at the time of the theft. "General." "It's you?" The general kept his weapon aimed, his expression stern. "The items have been delivered. What are you doing here?" "Oh?" The young man sounded surprised. "I thought you'd be pleased to see me." "Pleased? You freaks," the general scoffed. "If it weren't for your strength, you wouldn't even have the right to stand before me." The young man made a slight move, prompting the general to aim his gun at the young man's hand. "Stay still. Remove your hand from that wand. You don't want to test which is faster, magic or bullets." The young man shrugged, and the general ordered, "Now, leave my office immediately." The young man remained silent for a moment under the general's threatening gaze, then remarked, "It seems you're not truly serving your country either." The general frowned in confusion, just as the young man vanished. Suddenly, the general felt a pressure on his scalp, but when he looked back, it was gone. "What are you doing?" he exclaimed, sensing something was amiss as cold sweat trickled down his face. The young man reappeared, but the general was immobilized. The illusion faded, revealing John's face. Using psychic magic, John controlled the general and began to sift through his memories like flipping through a book. John's expression darkened as he discovered the destination of the missing weapons. "Very well, the four candidates have shared their visions," Spencer announced, setting down the unicorn. "Now, for the final part. The unicorn's choice will determine our new leader." The unicorn, now free, trotted towards the candidates. It passed by Odom Tick, who offered a flattering smile, mistakenly believing it would influence the unicorn's decision. Unfortunately, his attempt failed to win its favor. Jingzhong watched nervously, her lips tight and hands clasped in front of her, maintaining a composed demeanor. The unicorn circled, ultimately bypassing her. The tension was palpable as Barty Sr.'s supporters held their breath. At this moment, Barty Sr. found himself enveloped in a sense of tranquility. The pursuit of power, which had once consumed him, now seemed less urgent as the opportunity lay within reach. The unicorn paused in front of him, appearing indecisive. Spencer, along with everyone else, watched anxiously. To everyone's surprise, the unicorn turned back, approached Ying, circled once more, and then gracefully bowed its legs in a gesture of respect. Not just Barty Sr., but Spencer and the entire assembly were taken aback. The person chosen by the unicorn was not the seasoned politician many had expected, but Yinge, marking a moment of unexpected unity and a new direction for their community. The chosen of the Qilin must embody purity, kindness, sanctity, and power. Yet the unfolding scene seemed to mock these noble criteria. "The Qilin made its choice?" Spencer asked, his voice laced with disbelief. At that moment, an uproar disrupted the tense silence. "No, this cannot be." A group of people, breathless from their hurried ascent and seemingly having faced numerous obstacles along the way, burst onto the scene. "We must reveal his true identity and strip away his facade," Lippy declared, pointing accusingly at Inge. "This man is not who he claims to be. He is not Inge Griffith." Lippy's proclamation hit the crowd like a thunderbolt, sending shockwaves through the gathered assembly. He raised a box he was carrying, adding to the suspense. "A heinous crime has been committed here. The body of the former German Minister of Magic, Bart Schmidt, lies within this box. He was murdered in broad daylight by the International Confederation of Wizards." With a dramatic gesture, Lippy opened the box, from which a corpse levitated into view. Amidst the chaos, Inge observed the unfolding drama with an air of detached indifference. Chapter 664, Accusation, Truly Ingenious. Grindelwald? The name echoed through the air, amplified by the magic projecting images onto the streamers fluttering in the wind. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the figure presented before them. "Don't you mean Bart Schmidt? Why Grindelwald?" Lippy's voice cut through the confusion, loud and clear. "This is not Grindelwald. Someone has used Muggle plastic surgery to alter his appearance," Lippy announced. With a flick of his wand, he revealed the true identity beneath the disguise, the scars, the body that did not match Grindelwald's, and most tellingly, the ring. The ring, recognized by the German delegates as the emblem of the Schmidt family, was the key to the truth. "The Schmidt ring is a bloodline identifier," Lippy explained as he brought the ring close to Schmidt's body. The skull on the ring opened its mouth in confirmation. "Yes, it's him!" An official from the German Ministry of Magic exclaimed. "The ring of Schmidt possesses magic that only Minister Schmidt can wield." This revelation confirmed the identity of the deceased, inciting a wave of anger among the Germans. The representatives from the International Federation of Wizards wore grim expressions, having witnessed Schmidt's demise. They realized they had been deceived. A minister of magic turned to demanding, "Griffith, you owe us an explanation." The entire operation, from the arrest to the action, had been orchestrated by the Polish Ministry of Magic. The alteration of appearance suggested not a mistake but a premeditated act. Inge, who had basked in the glory of being hailed a hero, was now facing the backlash. "Griffith, respond immediately." The accusations flew. "Deceiving everyone, your crime is unforgivable. Expel him, he has no right to be a candidate." The air was thick with condemnation, yet Inge appeared unfazed. "He's not Griffith," Old Batty interjected, his gaze fixed on Qilin, puzzled by the unfolding events. "I suspect the real Griffith has vanished, much like Schmidt." Turning to Inge, Old Batty's tone was calm yet firm. "Are you still unwilling to reveal your true identity, Grindelwald?" The mention of Grindelwald sent a shockwave through the crowd, stirring unease. Spencer stepped back, and Odom expressed his disbelief. "Crouch, are you certain of this?" Jingjang declared, "Grindelwald has no right to participate in this election." All eyes were on Inge as Batty Sr. brandished his wand, asking softly, "Do you have anything to say for yourself, Grindelwald?" The supporters who had once cheered for Inge now hesitated, their loyalty wavering. "You should remain steadfast in your support," Inge addressed his followers. "Your allegiance was not to Griffith, but to the cause of magic itself. You recognize the decline of magic in our world, and that conviction should not falter." His plea, however, fell on deaf ears. A supporter challenged, "Are you truly Grindelwald?" The disillusionment was palpable as another cried out, "We championed heroes, not deceivers. We stand for justice." The supporters' accusations turned the election into a farce. Old Batty, wand still aimed at Inge, pressed further. "How did you manipulate Qilin into choosing you?" He refused to believe Qilin would select Grindelwald willingly. If you were truly noble and pure, the original election wouldn't have been marred by deceit. "Qilin chose me," Inge stated, locking eyes with Old Batty. "My actions have always been in service of the magical world, to restore its greatness." "Enough of your lies," Old Batty retorted, his patience wearing thin. "There's no escape for you now." Aurors began ascending the stairs, their wands drawn, as the wizards around them watched intently. "Your failures have eroded any trust in you," Batty Sr. declared. "Surrender with dignity. It's the least you can do for yourself." His words resonated, earning applause even from those who had opposed him. It was a call for the powerful to face their end with dignity. Inge chuckled, unfazed by the turn of events, his response hanging in the air, a testament to the complex web of deception and truth that had ensnared them all. Reaching for the wand, Inger turned his gaze to old Batty. "Why don't you give it a try?" Inger suggested. "See for yourself if the child is under a spell." Old Batty cast a wary glance at Keelan, hesitated for a moment, and then pointed his wand at the creature. "Fubut Ubeb Tapten," he intoned. A flash of light burst forth, and the little unicorn merely tilted its head, curious but unharmed. Old Batty's eyes widened in shock. The creature was neither cursed nor a phantom. How could this be? Could it be that Cheelan had chosen Grindelwald? Impossible. Grindelwald's selection was unthinkable. Turmoil churned in old Batty's heart as he demanded, "What sorcery have you employed?" "I've done nothing of the sort," Inger replied with a slight smile, spreading his hands to show they were empty. "Cheelan chose me of its own accord." Addressing the bewildered onlookers, he proclaimed, "This is the will of magic itself. I act only to restore magic to its rightful glory." "Enough of your deceit," Lippy interjected, pulling a list from his pocket and announcing, "You infiltrated the Polish Ministry of Magic, masquerading as Griffith, and tampered with the staff." He brandished the list, believing it would unsettle Grindelwald, but Inger remained unfazed. "Yes, I did those things," Inger admitted calmly, "but still, Cheelan chose me." He glanced affectionately at the Cheelan, which returned his gaze with innocent curiosity. "Spencers, speak the truth," Inger urged. "Tell everyone whom Cheelan has chosen." Spencers found himself in a difficult position. He could confirm that Cheelan was indeed vibrant and healthy, yet it had chosen the most unlikely candidate. As a member of the Association of Drillers, an organization dedicated to serving the magical community with loyalty and honesty, he could not lie. With a heavy heart, he admitted, "Cheelan chose Inge Griffith." "See!" Inger exclaimed triumphantly. "Magic itself has made its choice clear. I am the rightful new leader of the International Federation of Wizards." His declaration silenced the crowd, but soon a voice rang out in support. "We stand with you, Grindelwald." Quickly, others joined in, their wands sending up green fireworks, a symbol of allegiance to the former Grindelwald supporters. The Aurors, surrounded by the crowd, hesitated to intervene. Lippy was taken aback by the turn of events, while Inger's laughter echoed through the air. "He murdered the Minister of Magic!" Someone from the German Ministry of Magic shouted in outrage. "He must be held accountable, not celebrated." Amidst the chaos, old Batty struggled to come to terms with the reality that Cheelan had indeed chosen Grindelwald. The revelation was a bitter pill to swallow, considering his years of opposition. His gaze then fell on a familiar figure among the supporters, young Barty, who observed the scene without joining in the celebration. Old Batty lowered his wand, but before the cheers could resume, Odom intervened. "You, a coward who hides behind another's identity, what right do you have to lead?" he challenged. "If you resort to deception to claim leadership, then I will denounce the International Federation of Wizards for eternity." The crowd fell silent as Inger faced Odom. "And how can you be so sure I am not Griffith?" he countered. Odom, taken aback, hesitated before casting Specialist Revelio. The spell, aimed at Inger, revealed nothing. Inger's appearance remained unchanged despite repeated attempts. The crowd was stunned. If Inger's face was neither a disguise nor a result of transfiguration, then only one possibility remained. "The one chosen by Cheelan is not Gellert Grindelwald," Inger stated calmly, turning to face old Batty. "It is I, Inge Griffith." Chapter 665, The Missile Falls, and Death Comes. Barty Crouch Sr. was in disbelief. In the minds of everyone present, Inge Griffiths was a problem already dealt with by Grindelwald. The Inge they knew was far from wise. It seemed everyone had fallen into a grave misunderstanding, including the officials from the German Ministry of Magic, who now stared at Inge in shock. "Yes, I am not a wise man," Inge declared, stepping forward with a Cheelan trailing behind him. "Under my leadership, Poland has never recovered. I've wanted to change, but found no way to do so." His voice carried across to the entire wizarding world. I am aware of Schmidt's death and the infiltration of the Ministry of Magic, yet I am still chosen as the future leader of the wizarding world. He turned to Odom, his gaze piercing. My identity is confirmed. Do you have any objections? Odom, feeling an inexplicable chill, replied, No. Inge then directed his attention to Jingjiang. The Qilin chose me, is that correct? Jingjiang responded gravely, It is indeed legitimate. If you are not an imposter, then your selection is both logical and legal. Inge offered a slight smile, looking at old Barty. I have become the leader. Can this decision be reversed? No, Barty Sr. admitted, lowering his wand for the first time in his life, feeling defeated. I had everything, yet I lost to the choice of the Qilin in the end. Inge's gaze then shifted to Spencer. Do you believe I am a qualified leader? Griffiths. Spencer hesitated before speaking truthfully. My heart tells me you are not qualified, but the Qilin chose you. This indicates you possess a pure kindness, willing to dedicate and sacrifice for magic. Finally, Inge addressed everyone present. What do you think? The crowd, believing in the wisdom of the Qilin, showed their support, respecting the outcome of the election. However, Inge was far from satisfied. Magic society, he exclaimed, lifting the Qilin and gently stroking its head. This is a matter of life and death for all wizards. You place all your hopes on a magical creature? Shaking his head, Inge continued, You are truly foolish, a bunch of idiots like dung beetles. The crowd was stunned. After becoming a leader, he had begun to insult them. Magic has become trivial to you, Inge said, embracing the unicorn. You are aware of my crimes and my foolishness, yet you choose to trust in the unicorn. His grip tightened, and the Qilin, sensing something amiss, began to struggle. Trust in a beast. Inge's grip was unyielding, and it only tightened further. I want to tell you that you are wrong. A chilling sound echoed in Inge's arms. Crack! Spencer's eyes widened in horror. Everyone witnessed the appalling scene as Inge released his grip, and the body of the Qilin, its neck broken by his hands, slowly fell to the ground. Closing his eyes and taking a deep breath, a tear rolled down Inge's cheek. With a complex expression, he said, Such an ignorant magic society will be destroyed by the times. What have you done? Spencer rushed forward, distraught, and cradled the Qilin's body. I'm making it clear that we need to change, Inge stated, his demeanor compassionate, a stark contrast to the act of violence he had just committed. This world is too ignorant, manipulated, and deceived, facing imminent crises like an ostrich burying its head in the sand. We need to change. The weak will be preyed upon by the strong, and strength must come first. If you don't change, you will be eliminated. Everyone must abandon their magical fantasies and confront the current crisis. This is the only lesson I can offer you as your leader. His words were sincere, yet they left the crowd pondering their meaning. Inge looked at Star in the crowd, smiled, and said, Let's make magic great again. He raised his hands and calmly gazed at the sky, signaling a new beginning, albeit under a shadow of controversy and tragedy. The world awoke to a sight that would forever change the course of wizarding history. From his vantage point, old Batty witnessed a light plummeting from the sky like a meteor, its descent causing his complexion to pale dramatically. His immediate concern was for his son, little Batty, prompting a roar of desperation as he rushed towards him. What descended upon them was a power unknown to most wizards, a creation of muggles that Ingen had foreseen. Below the floating castle, the inhabitants heard the roar just before the explosion erupted in front of Ing. He faced the blast with a calm acceptance, offering no resistance. This was a sacrifice, a necessary awakening for the wizarding world, to remind them of the greatness of magic. The flames consumed him, and many wizards in the vicinity had no chance to escape or scream before their lives were extinguished. The magical confines of the area rendered apparition useless against the destruction. In Nurmengard, Grindelwald watched the cataclysmic event unfold, a glass of wine in hand. Make magic even greater, he mused, his thoughts as turbulent as the wine swirling in his glass. His past failure did not dishearten him. Rather, it enlightened him to the flaws in his approach. He recognized the decline of magic as a societal issue, not merely a human one. Complacency had blinded many wizards to the threats around them, especially those posed by muggles. The wizarding world's elite, comfortable in their positions, failed to see the dangers of their pro-Muggle stances. Death, Grindelwald believed, was a necessary wake-up call. Only through significant loss could the wizarding community recognize the true threats to their existence. It was time for them to abandon their self-righteous dreams and realize that their leaders needed to embody more than just pure goodness. Inge Griffiths was the embodiment of the sacrifice Grindelwald deemed necessary. Chosen by the Qilin for his pure magical essence and willingness to sacrifice for the greater good, Inge's kindness was not a weakness but a strength. He chose not to destroy the magical world but to awaken it. His martyrdom would herald a new era for wizards. Make magic great again for the greater good, Al, Grindelwald reflected, his ideals unchanged. He envisioned a world where wizards no longer had to hide but could live freely, a vision increasingly threatened by the advancement of Muggles. He and Credence had planted seeds of change, hoping to inspire others to recognize the need for transformation. Inge and Star were among those seeds, proving that only a significant crisis could unite the wizarding world against a common threat. The aftermath of the explosion was a deafening silence, a stark contrast to the chaos that had preceded it. The floating castle, once a beacon of magical innovation, lay in ruins, a testament to the destructive power of Muggle technology. Old Batty, amidst the devastation, struggled to comprehend the loss. The explosion had left him disoriented, with only a faint call reaching his ears. Surveying the wreckage, he realized the extent of the catastrophe. The once impenetrable iron armor curse had been obliterated, claiming the lives of over 200 wizards. Odom, a wizard familiar with Muggle weaponry, was in disbelief. The missile, a tool capable of leveling cities, had targeted them directly. "Where's Griffith?" Old Batty inquired, his mind racing. Odom's response was filled with anger and resignation. "That bastard is dead." Old Batty's gaze then fell upon Lippy, who had been closest to Inge at the moment of impact. The missile's target had been Inge, making Lippy the first casualty. The loss was profound, with Spencer, a respected elder who had invited John to join the Researchers Association, among the fallen. This tragic event marked a turning point, a harsh reminder of the vulnerabilities within the wizarding world and the urgent need for unity and strength in the face of external threats. Amidst the chaos wrought by technology, the Aurors found themselves narrowly escaping death or severe injury from the explosion. Amid the debris, a faint voice called out for help. "Help me, Jing!" Zhang's weakened voice emerged. She was trapped under the rubble, prompting an immediate response from the two nearby. "Wingardium Leviosa," Odom chanted, skillfully casting the levitation spell to lift the heavy stones. Barty Sr. quickly moved in, pulling the injured woman to safety. Jing Zhang's injuries were severe. Both of her legs were broken, rendering her unable to walk. In a state of panic, old Barty emerged, his eyes scanning the devastation that lay across the shattered bridge. With a swift motion, he used his wand to apparate, crossing to the other side where the scene was even more grim. The bodies were barely recognizable as human, and old Barty, losing all sense of his usual composure, frantically searched through them. "No, no, no, no!" he exclaimed, his voice filled with despair as he cleared the rubble. Odom joined in the search, and together they finally uncovered Barty Jr., who, against all odds, was still conscious. Miraculously, the amulet he carried had saved his life. "Father," he uttered weakly as he emerged from the ruins, only to be enveloped in a tight embrace by his father's trembling hands. "My son," old Barty whispered, his voice shaking. The fear and concern etched on his face were expressions Barty Jr. had never seen before, making him momentarily recall a distant memory of his father's worry over a minor fall. Unsure of how to respond, Barty Jr. hesitantly placed his hand on his father's hunched back. In that moment, the father and son found a semblance of relief amidst the devastation surrounding them. Chapter 666, Evil, Justice. Barty Crouch Sr. and his son were both sorted into Slytherin, a house often associated with cunning and ambition. The elder Crouch was secretly proud of his son, yet he never openly expressed this pride. This lack of acknowledgement led Barty Jr. to seek validation by joining the Death Eaters, a decision that nearly cost him his life and deepened the rift between him and his father. The elder Crouch, once a prominent figure in the wizarding world, now found himself stripped of his titles and accolades, reduced to just a father terrified of losing his son. It was in this moment of vulnerability that father and son finally reconciled. Amidst the chaos, Odom's voice pierced the silence. "Hey, there's someone here. I need help." Struggling to lift the debris with one hand, he called for assistance. Barty Sr. and Jr. rushed over, helping to clear the rubble and rescue the trapped individual. "Why does he look familiar?" Odom mused, staring at the face of the person they had just saved. Suddenly, the man's eyes snapped open, startling Odom. "Are you okay?" he asked the bloodied figure, who offered no response, merely gazing back at him. Odom felt a twinge of irritation at the lack of gratitude but quickly turned his attention to organizing a rescue effort. "We need to regroup and evacuate," he declared, aware that the attack had not reached the Sky Castle, leaving many unaware of the disaster unfolding. "I'll escort Ms. Zhang to safety. Barty, old Barty, bring your son and follow," Odom instructed, turning to the rescued man. "Can you walk? We need to leave." The man's dazed expression raised concerns about possible brain damage. Barty Jr. scrutinized the man, sensing something familiar about him. Suddenly, the man shouted, "Make magic great again." It was Star, miraculously alive, but seemingly resigned to his fate. He released a button from his grasp. "Protago." Barty Sr. instinctively cast a protective spell over his son as flames engulfed the area. Odom was caught off guard, consumed by the blaze. "Father," Barty Jr. cried out as the explosion sent him flying. Amidst the fiery chaos, he caught a glimpse of his father's remorseful eyes. The explosion inflicted further damage on the Sky Castle, shaking its very foundations. Barty Jr., dazed and injured, managed to stand, only to witness a series of objects plummeting from the sky, trailing fire. Realizing the imminent danger, he grabbed his father's dropped wand and used apparition to escape. Jing Zhang, facing the approaching destruction, composed herself and adjusted her hair, accepting her fate. The subsequent crashes obliterated the Sky Castle, marking one of the darkest days in magical history. The survivors would never forget the vulnerability of magic against Muggle technology, a humbling reminder of the fragility of their world. In the eastern reaches of the Kingdom of Bhutan, a silent group of wizards and individuals dressed in Muggle attire observed the distant explosion. A golden thread sliced through the void, revealing a portal from which John emerged. His expression was somber as he questioned, "Why?" "Magic society is in decline," the old man with glasses solemnly replied. "We believed we had to save it." "Your rescue resulted in thousands of deaths," John said, his eyes reflecting a chilling resolve. Despite securing his position and arriving with intentions to help, he was too late to prevent the tragedy. The old man's response underscored the gravity of their actions, revealing the complex interplay of intentions and consequences in their quest to preserve the magical world. "They failed to grasp the true danger posed by Muggles. This serves as a dire warning," he declared, his voice abruptly cut off as his body was engulfed in a burst of white light. John, wand still in hand, surveyed the others. A young man stepped forward, proclaiming, "To restore magic to its former glory, my lord, the second king." "The emergence of a hero is invariably shadowed by the presence of demons," the young man continued. "Inherent in one entity are two opposing forces. Evil must exist for justice to prevail. Only then can a hero arise to guide us all towards righteousness." John understood that these individuals harbored no regrets. They were like martyrs, ready to sacrifice their lives for their beliefs. Raising his wand, John unleashed waves of white energy, and in an instant all were silenced. He then opened a portal and journeyed to the birthplace of magic, only to find devastation. The air was filled with the echoes of despair, the remnants of Grindelwald's ultimate deception, a spectacle designed to mislead the world. Numbly, John made his way towards the Sky Castle, oblivious to the pleas for help that reached his ears. With each step towards the ruins of the once majestic castle, the reality of his situation became clearer. There, amidst the destruction, lay his partner, barely recognizable. John's heart sank. His meticulously laid plans to elevate Barty Sr. had ended in utter failure. Reaching out to touch what remained of old Barty, his hand met only debris. "It seems I wasn't clever enough," John murmured, gazing down at the charred remains before rising to his feet, a shell of his former self. Surrounded by death, cries of anguish, and the acrid smell of smoke, John was overwhelmed by the magnitude of the tragedy. He had thought himself hardened by past battles, his victory over Voldemort, and the harrowing conflict at Hogwarts. Yet the sight of Theodore, half-buried and lifeless, stirred something within him. With a wave of his wand, John freed Theodore from the rubble, healing his wounds with a spell. As Theodore's eyes fluttered open, meeting John's gaze, a transformation occurred. John, radiating light, ascended towards the heavens, becoming a beacon of hope amidst the despair. With another wave of his wand, he summoned the divine guard of the Protoss, their golden forms descending from the sky to aid in the rescue efforts. "Guardian bodyguard," he intoned, and silver light materialized into elemental guards who began to clear the debris and save those trapped beneath. John's magic brought healing light down upon the wounded, his actions akin to those of a deity among mortals. A Ministry of Magic employee, touched by this light, silently broadcasted the miraculous scene. As the images of the ministry's efforts were rekindled across nations, all who had felt the sting of the disaster watched in awe as the Second King illuminated the darkness. In the aftermath, thousands of wizards were saved from the ruins. They looked upon John, not with words, but with gratitude shining in their eyes. As he descended, John's presence commanded silence. "Go home and take them back," he said softly, his words carrying the weight of unspoken understanding. No one dared to question him. As the wizards found their loved ones among the ruins, tears were shed for those lost. From the depths of evil, justice had emerged. Heroes, indeed, are born from the ashes of disaster. Chapter 667, Sacrifice and Turmoil. It was a day filled with the usual excitement as the Hogwarts Express embarked on its journey to the magical school. The train was bustling with students, the familiar faces of years past making way for the eager newcomers. Among them, Luna Lovegood found herself in a unique company, sharing her compartment with a horn-snoring beast that had grown to the impressive size of a cow. She lay comfortably against its crooked snout, her brown hair cascading around her as the creature let out a contented moo. Feeding it a dragon fruit, skin and all, Luna turned her gaze towards the window, observing the heated exchange between two students outside. "Last time, you were just lucky," Ginny declared, her arms crossed defiantly over her chest and her eyebrows raised in challenge. "Really? I think it was you who had luck on your side," Astoria retorted, her tone cool and unbothered. The two girls, one with fiery red hair and the other with striking blonde locks, shared a competitive spark that flared up whenever they crossed paths. Ginny, with her fighting spirit, vowed, "I will end Slytherin's victory streak this year." Astoria, however, remained non-committal, and the two passed by each other without another word. Luna, meanwhile, had turned her attention back to the Quibbler, flipping through its pages. Suddenly, a feeling of unease washed over her, prompting her to look out the window once more. The large disc shell she wore trembled slightly as one, then two, and soon a flurry of owls appeared, flying past the Hogwarts Express towards Hogsmeade, each dropping urgent newspapers from the sky. The scene shifted to the Three Broomsticks, where its beautiful proprietress stepped outside to pick up one of the newspapers. Her usually indifferent expression morphed into one of terror. "Merlin," she gasped, covering her mouth to stifle a scream. Tears welled in her eyes, rolling down her cheeks and falling onto the newspaper, which bore the headline of a catastrophic event, a fire engulfing a city. As more and more people came across the newspaper, disbelief was the universal reaction. The wind scattered the papers across the sky, sending them towards Hogwarts, where Professor Slughorn was examining a curious Muggle invention. Distracted by an insistent tapping at the window, he accidentally spilled the contents of the canister he was holding, causing a mess on his desk. Annoyed, he opened the window to shoo away the persistent owl, only to be greeted by the grim news the bird had brought. Bhutan Kingdom Explosion. Barty Crouch, among many Ministry of Magic deaths, read the headline that caught Slughorn's eye, freezing him in place. The open window allowed the gusty wind to scatter his papers, one of which flew out and drifted down past the Transfiguration office, where Professor McGonagall sat, her heart heavy with sorrow. "No, it shouldn't be like this," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes as she read the devastating news. The article detailed the loss of thousands of wizards under artillery fire, marking the worst disaster in the wizarding world in 5 centuries. Among the list of the deceased were faces familiar to McGonagall, some of whom were her former students. The weight of the tragedy was almost too much for the seasoned witch to bear. As she turned the page, her gaze fell upon the photo of a child, a stark reminder of the innocence caught in the crossfire of a world torn apart by conflict. The realization that such young lives were among the casualties was a bitter pill to swallow, leaving a profound sense of loss and a question of what the future held for the wizarding community in the wake of such turmoil. In the aftermath of a great battle, the wizarding world looked to the skies, where a man radiated light amidst the darkness. Newspapers across the land heralded his arrival with headlines such as, "The Second King Appears, Saving the Surviving Wizards." Yet, no words seemed sufficient to capture the magnitude of the moment. At Hogsmeade Station, the atmosphere was a mix of excitement and unease. Students disembarked from the Hogwarts Express, their chatter filling the air. Ginny Weasley spotted Hagrid and called out to him, but he seemed distant, lost in thought, and unusually he was clad in armor. The rain poured down, soaking them all, adding to the sense of foreboding. Luna Lovegood, with her unique sensitivity to the world's unseen layers, expressed a feeling of deep unease. Accompanied by a horned Snorkack, she seemed to sense the sorrow in the air, a sentiment that puzzled Ginny. Despite the inclement weather, they proceeded to the castle, their spirits dampened not just by the rain, but by the strange atmosphere that enveloped Hogwarts. Inside, the usual vibrancy of the Great Hall was subdued. Professors whispered among themselves, their expressions grave. Even the mischievous Peeves was absent, his silence a testament to the gravity of the situation. Professor McGonagall and Slughorn attempted to maintain a semblance of normalcy, insisting that the school must remain a sanctuary, untouched by the chaos outside. Yet, the outside world's shadows crept in, the students' whispers echoing the news of the day. Elsewhere, John, referred to as the Second King, surveyed the aftermath of a devastating battle with the Ministry of Magic. The air was thick with smoke and sorrow as he extended his senses, searching for survivors among the ruins. Beside him, Theodore, a loyal follower, bore the scars of the conflict. The news was grim. The Star Disciples, once vibrant and full of life, were now gone, their bodies a testament to the brutality of the conflict. John's calm demeanor belied the weight of the loss. He ordered the fallen to be taken back, a silent tribute to their sacrifice. The absence of little Barty's body offered a glimmer of hope amidst the despair, a hope that John clung to as he commanded a retreat. Left alone among the ruins, John's stoic facade gave way to a moment of reflection. The weight of leadership and the cost of war etched in his eyes. Rita Skeeter, ever the opportunist, sensed a story but was checked by her own conscience, a rare occurrence. She dismissed an overeager reporter, understanding that some moments were too sacred for sensationalism. In the end, the wizarding world stood at a crossroads, looking to the Second King for guidance. Amidst the ruins and the rain, hope flickered, a testament to the resilience of those who dare to believe in the light, even in the darkest of times. When reporters from competing publications approached, Rita Skeeter swiftly intervened, stating, "Everyone, please give him some space." Hearing this directive from the editor-in-chief of the Daily Prophet, none of the reporters dared to encroach further. Rita, often known for her penchant for scandalous gossip, showed no interest in such matters at this moment. Instead, she stood guard, akin to a vigilant bodyguard protecting her charge with unwavering dedication. The events unfolding were being reported far and wide, sending shockwaves throughout the entire wizarding world. The images that emerged were apocalyptic, leading many to envision the end of days. The unprecedented deaths of numerous ministers of magic had plunged the community into unparalleled chaos. Speculations were rife, with theories of revenge circulating. But the question of against whom remained unanswered. Inger was the first to perish, consumed by flames. This raised questions about the perpetrator. Could it be Grindelwald, or perhaps an even more unthinkable suspect, a muggle? The situation was dire, with the magical society teetering on the brink of an abyss. The uncertainty and fear were palpable as the community grappled with the implications of these events. Amidst this turmoil, Rita Skeeter's unusual stance as a protector rather than a purveyor of gossip, marked a significant departure from her usual modus operandi, underscoring the gravity of the crisis at hand. Chapter 668, The Revival of the Witch Party, Making Magic Great Again. How did this happen to them? It was a muggle weapon. The thought of muggles mastering such power is terrifying. We must retaliate and destroy those weapons. It's not the muggles who are at fault, it's those individuals. If muggles didn't possess these weapons, we would be safe. The international magical community was in turmoil. Amidst the chaos, a chilling proclamation emerged. This world belongs to wizards. A white-haired wizard with heterochromia entered the wizarding tavern, his demeanor calm. Those horrendous and destructive creations by muggles will soon be unleashed upon us wizards. Grindelwald, someone exclaimed in terror. Grindelwald offered a slight smile, ignoring the fear his presence evoked, and made his way to the front of the tavern. I understand some of you fear me. Yes, let's address the attack, he said, standing alone without any followers. Was it truly an attack? He directed his gaze at a middle-aged wizard who trembled in fear. Grindelwald smiled reassuringly. We should consider who the Qilin has chosen. He reminded the crowd that before the catastrophic event, a new leader had been appointed to the International Federation of Wizards. This reminder sparked a realization among the attendees, though the devastating attack was closely associated with this new leader. Have you ever pondered why he was chosen as the leader? Grindelwald inquired, pointing with his index finger. Magic selected him, and all his actions were in the service of saving magic. Nonsense, a young wizard protested. Thousands of wizards perished in that attack. Yes, those were necessary sacrifices, Grindelwald admitted, approaching the young wizard. Tell me, how did they die? They were victims of muggle weapons. Grindelwald surveyed the room. Muggles possess many more such weapons, and it's only a matter of time before they are used against us wizards. He raised his hand, mimicking the descent of a missile, causing everyone to shudder. I showed you this to make you understand, he said, his voice persuasive as he clasped his hands behind his back. In this world, power reigns supreme, and muggles possess the power to annihilate us. If we do not unite, we will be obliterated by even more powerful weapons. A wizard hesitantly spoke up. But what about the wizards who were attacked? They were undermining us, Grindelwald stated flatly. The secrecy law has been diminishing our living space. Muggles, once feeble and protected by the secrecy law, have become so powerful that wizards are helpless against them. Brothers and sisters, Grindelwald continued, tears welling in his eyes, I implore you to awaken. With sincerity, he added, the sword of Damocles hangs over us all. The dangers we face have compelled me to take such drastic measures, he said, shedding another poignant tear. With tears streaming down his face, he pleaded, Magic will be great again. Believe in me, my people. The tavern fell into a hushed silence. Holy fire purifies decay. This slogan resonated as various ministries of magic took action. The witch party, chanting their slogans, sought to restore magic to its former glory. They called upon their brethren to join their cause. The selection of the unicorn confirmed magic's choice. The deaths served as sacrifices at dawn, illuminating the path and keeping the community vigilant. Muggle technology posed a threat to the very existence of magic. Without change, they faced a future as bleak as Bhutan's, with no escape from despair. Grindelwald, responsible for the deaths of thousands of wizards, now champions the cause of magic. The German Minister of Magic, Gresham, who had managed to escape, voiced his outrage at a hastily convened meeting of the International Federation of Wizards. 20 ministers of magic, 300 ministry employees, and 2,123 innocent wizards, Gresham bellowed, all dead. Yes, we are full, lie aware, Oblansk, the Bulgarian Minister of Magic, responded gravely. However, the exact whereabouts of Gellert Grindelwald remain unknown. The news of British Minister for Magic Barty Crouch's death in the attack had sent shockwaves through the assembly. We need a leader, someone voiced out, breaking the heavy silence. Leader? Gresham couldn't hide his disbelief. In such a critical moment, you're concerned about power? No, that's not what I meant, the man replied, slightly embarrassed. We need someone capable to guide us through this crisis. He's correct, Bulgaria's Minister of Magic, Obransk, chimed in. Unity is our priority now. Grindelwald's rhetoric about the Muggle threat is spreading worldwide. We need leaders who can calm and reassure our communities. Muggle threat? Gresham scoffed. Aren't we all in contact with officials from Muggle nations? How can we be unaware? You're missing the point, an old, authoritative voice interjected. Gresham turned to see an elderly man, a figure reminiscent of Spencer from the Drillers Association, and held his tongue. Muggles have always been cautious around wizards, the old man began, his gaze sweeping across the gathered representatives. The secrecy that surrounds our world only fuels their apprehension. This fear stems from the unknown, the mysterious nature of our existence. He explained how the Minister of Magic's role included liaising with Muggle governments, a task shrouded in utmost secrecy. Wizards are feared because we are an enigma to them. During Fudge's tenure as minister, his overbearing approach towards the Prime Minister and demands for cooperation were misguided and dangerous. The International Statute of Secrecy serves to preserve this mystery, preventing Muggles from acting against us. But if they were to discover our vulnerabilities, we would be defenseless against their technology. The room fell silent as the gravity of his words sank in. We need a hero to lead us, to navigate through these perilous times, the old man continued, his voice deep and resonant. Grindelwald seeks to position himself as such, but his path leads to our downfall. He aims to expose our weaknesses to the Muggles, undermining the balance we've maintained for centuries. The discussion shifted towards finding a suitable leader. Who could it be? Someone asked, the weight of the situation heavy in the air. Dumbledore, Yelfan suggested, only to be interrupted by Percy Weasley, the representative from the British Ministry of Magic. Forget Dumbledore, Percy stated firmly. Beyond his magical prowess, what has he truly offered? Mind your words, Weasley, Yelfan retorted coldly. Dumbledore defeated Grindelwald, remember? How, though? Percy countered with a sneer. You all seem to forget the man's reluctance to wield power. The room buzzed with whispered conversations, reflecting on Dumbledore's complicated legacy within the ministry. Percy continued, even if he doesn't seek the position, he'll be involved. He'll rally his old allies for another Dumbledore Saves the World campaign. The Assembly knew this all too well. It was a pattern they had seen before. Percy's gaze then landed on Charles Roland, the French Minister of Magic. Mr. Roland, who would you suggest? Caught under the scrutiny of the room, Roland, despite his outward smile, was inwardly cursing the situation. With a resigned sigh, he had no choice but to concede, Dumbledore. It's really not suitable, he muttered, his voice laced with uncertainty. He's old, and Grindelwald is in the prime of his youth. He paused, wrestling with his thoughts before adding, We have younger options, don't we? Younger? Who could he possibly be referring to? Roland knew the decision he was about to make would not only surprise many, but also turn him into an ardent admirer of the individual he was considering. Yet, he found himself cornered, with no other viable options. With a decisive flick of his wrist, he tossed the newspaper into the air, allowing it to unfurl graceful peen. Li. This is the hero we need, he declared, his voice resonating with a newfound conviction. The wizards gathered at the meeting craned their necks, their gazes fixated on the figure depicted in the newspaper floating above them. The image was striking, commanding their attention and respect. It was none other than the second king, John Wick. The room fell into a hushed silence as the implications of Roland's suggestion began to sink in. John Wick, a legend in his own right, was known for his unparalleled skills and unwavering determination. The thought of him joining their cause against Grindelwald sparked a glimmer of hope among the wizards. Roland watched their reactions, knowing full well the gravity of the proposal he had just made. John Wick was not just any hero, he was a symbol of resilience and strength. In a battle against a formidable foe like Grindelwald, such qualities were invaluable. As the wizards began to murmur among themselves, weighing the pros and cons of Roland's suggestion, it became clear that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. Yet, the possibility of having John Wick on their side offered a beacon of hope, a chance to tilt the scales in their favor. Roland knew that convincing John Wick to join their cause would be no easy feat. However, he also knew that in times of great peril, extraordinary measures were necessary. With the fate of the wizarding world hanging in the balance, Roland was prepared to do whatever it took to secure their victory against Grindelwald. The meeting continued, with discussions revolving around strategies and potential alliances. Yet, in the back of everyone's mind, the image of John Wick loomed large, a reminder of the unconventional yet potentially game-changing choice they were contemplating. As the meeting drew to a close, Roland felt a sense of resolve wash over him. The road ahead would be perilous, but with heroes like John Wick by their side, they stood a fighting chance. The battle against Grindelwald would be one for the ages, and Roland was ready to lead the charge, come what may. Chapter 669, The Aftermath at the Polish Ministry of Magic. Magic is in a state of decay, and from the ruins, heroes emerge. In times of terror, people seek out these heroes for guidance. Grindelwald, having returned to Poland, becomes the center of such turmoil. After witnessing the chaos at the election meeting, Grim confronts Grindelwald as he exits the Ministry of Magic. "What should I call you?" Grim asks, his voice a mix of anger and despair. "Are you here to kill me, like you've killed others?" "Grind, I have no intention of killing you," Grindelwald replies, his face bearing an expression of solemnity. "I haven't killed anyone." "What about the thousands of lives lost in Bhutan?" Grim challenges. "That was a sacrifice for the greater good of magic," Grindelwald asserts. "To restore magic to its former glory, we must break free from the old constraints." He raises his right hand, revealing an image of an explosion. "Did you see it?" he asks. "Yes, I saw it," Grim admits, his voice heavy. "It was horrific. No wizard could survive such an attack," Grindelwald says, his tone deep and grave. "I merely wanted to expose the threats and malice of the Muggles." In his eyes, there's a look of pity for magic, reminiscent of a compassionate saint. "Trust me, Grim. Trust me as you once did," he pleads, his expression earnest. "It's difficult for me," Grim confesses. "I understand, my friend." Grindelwald responds, shaking his head. "This is farewell. I leave everything here in your hands. Protect our people." With that, Grindelwald turns and walks away, making it clear he has no further plans to meddle with the Polish Ministry of Magic. Grim watches him leave, releasing a clenched fist. "Grindelwald, I can't trust you," Grim mutters to himself before turning to re-enter the ministry. With no leader in place, it's up to him to safeguard the wizards within. As Grindelwald's appearance shifts back to his original form, a young man approaches him. This wizard, recognizable to those familiar with the defense base incident, is joined by another who had been involved in the weapons theft. "Our people still dream of peaceful coexistence with Muggles," Grindelwald observes, looking over the recovering wizarding community. "We must spread the word." "What news?" the young wizard inquires. "About Poland," Grindelwald replies cryptically. Meanwhile, at the Polish branch of the Silver Hand Johnny store, Tongmi expresses his desire to return home. "I'll leave the matters here to you, Joe," he says to the silver-handed security guard. Tongmi's eyes scan a newspaper, pausing on the list of the deceased. The name Lippy Kerber stands out, a reminder of the harsh reality that Oz already knows. The shock of losing a friend who had promised to meet again is almost too much to bear. "My lord still needs me, and so does Ozzy," Tongmi reflects, his gaze landing on John's photo in the newspaper. The face that once showed determination now appears numb, a testament to the hardships endured. The memory of seeing a boy trapped in a cage, realizing that this person was worth following, crosses Tongmi's mind. He wonders how much suffering it took for someone to become so desensitized. Determined, Tongmi shakes hands with Joe, bidding farewell to the place. As he steps into the fireplace and is engulfed by blue flames, he's driven by a single thought. He needs me. Joe watches the flames, pondering the uncertain future that awaits them all. Outside, there was a stir among the employees, their faces etched with horror. Curious, he made his way through the crowd for a better look. The air was thick with an oppressive heat, and in an instant, Joe was consumed by an unseen force, his body evaporating into the ether. "Grandpa, you can't always make me do this," the little boy, who had been sent on an errand, finally mustered the courage to speak up. "That money is for my education." "Education?" the old man retorted angrily. "I think you're wasting your time. What good will learning do? When you have money, you won't go hungry." "But if I study hard and become a great wizard, I won't have to do things like this anymore," the boy argued, clutching a wizard card behind his back. "I can become powerful and ensure you never have to work again." The old man paused, taken aback by his grandson's earnestness, a look of realization dawning on his face as if hearing these words for the first time. "I want to be a righteous wizard," the boy declared with conviction. "Then, even without making money this way, you can live a good life, Grandpa." "You little rascal," the old man scolded, raising his hand. The boy braced himself for the expected blow, determined to stand his ground. But instead of a hit, a gentle, rough hand landed on his head, ruffling his hair. "Then study hard," the old man sighed, a softness in his voice. The boy's eyes widened in disbelief, a smile breaking across his face before he could respond. But their moment was shattered by a devastating force that swept through, consuming everything in its path. "The second king," murmured the representatives of various countries gathered at the International Federation of Wizards, their eyes fixed on the young man who seemed to embody divine lineage. The recent wave of power that the Second Dynasty unleashed across Europe had showcased a terrifying force. "Should we choose him?" Bulgarian Minister of Magic Oblansk hesitated. Unlike Dumbledore, the second king was ambitious, a fact known to all. From his beginnings in Nocturne Alley to his dominion over half of Europe, his ambitions had only grown, forcing Europe to view him as a formidable adversary. He lacked Dumbledore's inherent sense of duty towards the common good and was far from a saint. Many ministries of magic had been forced into negotiations due to the Second Dynasty's expansion. His ambition seemed boundless, threatening to engulf not just Europe, but the entire world. Yet, for some reason, the second king had not directly challenged any ministry of magic until now. And now it was the ministries that sought to engage him. "John Wick, he's not Dumbledore," Minister Rowland interjected, conjuring an image from a newspaper. "He's a hero in his own right, having saved over 1,000 lives. His nobility is evident, recognized by both the magical community and society at large." "It's not that John Wick needs us," Percy added, his eyes gleaming with determination. "It's that we need him. He doesn't have to become a hero, he already is one." Percy's gaze swept over the assembly, his youthful eyes reflecting a wisdom beyond his years. He will be the hero to guide those lost in darkness. Without him, what purpose does the International Federation of Wizards serve? "Percy Weasley, remember you are one of us," a wizard protested, his voice tinged with anger. "You're undermining your own position." "I never was," Percy replied, his statement leaving the room in stunned silence. With a calm yet assertive tone he continued, "I follow my king, under whose guidance the stars themselves shine brighter." He leaned forward slightly, his posture reminiscent of a seasoned politician, exuding an aura of authority. "Now, my king, I shall extend this beacon of hope to the entire magical world." His assertive gaze belied his youth, making it easy to forget that he was only a 22-year-old man. At that moment, a piece of paper fluttered in front of Minister Rowland. He picked it up, giving it a cursory glance. However, that brief look was enough to drastically alter his expression. "There's been an incident in Poland," he exclaimed, his voice laced with urgency. The sudden shift in the atmosphere was palpable. The room, once filled with the promise of spreading light and hope, was now clouded with the shadow of unforeseen trouble. The minister's reaction indicated the gravity of the situation, hinting at a crisis that could potentially ripple through the magical community. As the news of the incident in Poland began to unfold, it became clear that the magical world was on the brink of a challenge that would test their resilience and unity. The young man's resolve to spread light would now be put to the test as they navigated through the darkness of the unfolding crisis. Chapter 670, The Fragility of Magic and Pandora's Box. What happened to Poland? The room was filled with confusion as everyone turned their attention to Charles Rowland, the Minister of Magic, who was visibly shaken. With a voice strained by panic, he announced, "The Polish Ministry of Magic has been obliterated." A stunned silence fell over the room as his words sank in. A catastrophic disaster struck, engulfing both the Ministry of Magic and the entire wizarding community, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. The calamity spread to Warsaw, leaving no survivors in its wake. With those final words, he slumped into his chair, overcome by the gravity of the situation. For a moment, The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop as everyone processed the devastating news. It was as if they had forgotten how to breathe until, finally, someone let out a heavy sigh, followed by a collective gasp from the assembly. The wizarding community in Poland had been erased from existence, marking another tragic loss of life and magic. "We need him," declared the Bulgarian Minister of Magic, breaking the heavy silence. His earlier hesitation was replaced by a sense of urgency as he proclaimed, "We need John Wick. Only he can save us now." It was not about leadership. It was about salvation. Grindelwald had unleashed chaos akin to opening Pandora's box, and the wizarding world was on the brink of annihilation. "Let's remain calm," an elder statesman advised, trying to soothe the rising panic. His gaze shifted to Percy, and with a deep breath, he inquired, "Where is the second king?" All eyes turned to Percy, whose response would carry the weight of their collective hope. Sensing the shift in the room, Percy replied calmly, "The king is currently in Bhutan." "And what does he require?" the elder pressed, knowing Percy had more to share. Percy stood, his demeanor serious as he stated, "Respect." The elder rose to his feet, his tone matching Percy's gravity. "The Association of Drillers is ready to heed his command." One by one, representatives from various ministries of magic stood, pledging their support to the second king. From Bulgaria to Germany, France, Norway, and Finland, a chorus of allegiance echoed through the chamber. The meeting concluded with a heavy air of resolve as Percy made his way to the fireplace. "Mr. Weasley," Charles Rowland called out, catching up to Percy. With a cautious tone, he asked, "Your Excellency Wick, is there a way to restore peace to our world?" Percy paused, considering the question before responding. "Has he ever let you down?" Reflecting on Percy's words, Minister Rowland realized the answer was no. A slight smile appeared on Percy's lips. "That's your answer." The faith in their king was unwavering. Meanwhile, the Delacour family in France was doing their best to calm the frightened masses. The recent catastrophe had laid bare the fragility of magic, leaving nothing but despair in its wake. The streets were filled with chaos, resembling a macabre carnival at the end of the world. Amidst the pandemonium, Fleur Delacour stepped forward. "Quiet," she commanded, her voice amplified by a sonorous spell, instantly silencing the crowd. Standing proudly, she declared, "I am Fleur Delacour, a member of the Star Society, the eldest daughter of the ancient Delacour Alliance, and a warrior of Beauxbatons." Her titles commanded respect, and the crowd fell silent, captivated by the strikingly beautiful woman before them. "What are you afraid of?" Fleur challenged, climbing onto a statue to address the crowd. The Star Society badge on her chest glowed as she pointed at a wizard in the crowd. The named wizard, overwhelmed by fear, cried out, "We're doomed! Grindelwald and the Muggles will destroy us." "Grindelwald?" Fleur's response dripped with contempt, making it clear that fear was not an option. "The first Dark Lord?" Fleur's voice, laced with disdain, made it clear she thought it shameful to fear Grindelwald. This attitude unsettled many, prompting an angry retort from someone in the crowd. "He will kill you." "Then let him try," Fleur retorted, her pride evident as she lifted her chin defiantly. "If he kills me, my king will avenge me. I have nothing to fear." Her confidence was infectious, her gaze sweeping over the assembled wizards, leaving no room for doubt. "Do not fear, wizards. My king will protect you, care for you as if you were his own children. Are you afraid of death? My king possesses immense power." Monsieur Delacour watched his daughter, speechless, while Gabrielle's eyes sparkled with admiration. A wizard's voice cut through the murmurs. "Your king? Who is he?" With a graceful flick of her wand, Fleur summoned a banner adorned with stars and wands, a silver hand clutching a wand among them. Climbing atop the tallest statue, she unfurled the flag, letting it wave in the breeze. "My king is John Wick, the second king of the wizarding world, the founder of the Silver Hand, the strongest alchemist, and the wisest wizard." Her words were full of praise as she secured the flag into a hole she had made in the statue's head. "My king protects his people. From this day forth, this French hideout shall be a sanctuary under John Wick's protection. As long as this flag flies, doomsday will not find us." Fleur declared, her voice ringing out. "Fear the Dark Lord? Nonsense. My king has already defeated him." Her words captivated the fearful wizards, her figure, reminiscent of Joan of Arc, inspiring them. Taking a deep breath, Fleur rallied them. Follow my king. The hideout echoed with chants of John Wick's name. In the United Kingdom, a tense meeting unfolded at the old Malfoy Manor. Grindelwald has lost his mind, the head of the Burst family declared, panic in his voice. He intends to kill all wizards. Are you scared, Bostrode? Lucius Malfoy asked, his gaze dark and piercing, as he sat on a stone chair with Draco Malfoy by his side. Burst stumbled over his words. But His Excellency Wick hasn't said anything, has he? Draco, triggered by the mention of John Wick, snapped. Confused? John is in Bhutan. Did he say he would surrender? No. But, Burst tried to argue. There are no buts. Draco pointed accusingly, his anger palpable. You coward, you'll be at the children's table from now on. What haven't we faced before? Just Grindelwald? We will emerge stronger. Any who are weak may leave now. Draco's chest swelled with pride. Even in war, we will not fear. The second king will soon be the king of the magical world. Chastened, Burst reddened with embarrassment. It was then that Neville stood, his departure catching Draco's eye. Neville, where are you going? Neville paused, turning back to address the old alliance. I'm going to retrieve my sword, he declared with resolve. I will be the first to stand in battle. Excellent, Mr. Longbottom exclaimed, rising to his feet. True to the Lion of Longbottom, we swear to throw ourselves into the fray. Longbottom, the sword that will crown a king. Lucius stood as well, his voice carrying across the room. The Malfoy family, once seen as a symbol of fortune and protection in the wizarding world, now pledged their full support to John Wick. Even in death, we shall not be cowards. Power is everything. Lucius proclaimed, his gaze sweeping over the assembled family heads. To flee is to forsake the glory of our ancient lineage. It is time we fought for our king. Our battlefield awaits. Let us spread the mercy of our king to the world, Lucius declared, rallying the families, including Burst, who had been chastened earlier. Mr. Weasley observed the transformation, realizing that what he had once deemed decayed was being reshaped by an unexpected force. The ancient traditions and alliances of the wizarding world were being reborn, united under the banner of John Wick. In the Grand Hall, where the echoes of past alliances still lingered, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Now it was the moment for the king to make his move. Mr. Weasley, standing tall and dignified, placed his hand over his heart, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of pride and emotion. I'm proud of you, Percy, he said, his voice steady yet filled with an undercurrent of profound affection. Percy, who had always sought the approval and pride of his father, felt a surge of warmth and validation. The weight of his responsibilities seemed lighter in that moment, buoyed by his father's faith in him. The hall, with its ancient stones and the banners of countless houses, seemed to watch in silent approval. The alliance they were about to forge was not just a matter of political maneuvering. It was a testament to the courage and vision of those who dared to dream of a better future. Percy, now more than ever, felt the weight of his lineage and the expectations that came with it. Yet, with his father's simple, heartfelt declaration, he felt an unshakable resolve solidify within him. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges and uncertainties, but Percy knew that with the support of his family and the strength of the alliances they were building, they could face any adversity. The path to peace and unity was a treacherous one, but for the first time, Percy felt truly ready to lead the way. As Mr. Weasley withdrew his hand, the moment lingered, a silent pledge of support and confidence that would echo in Percy's heart for years to come. The king had made his move, and now, with his family by his side, Percy was ready to face whatever the future held. Chapter 671, Little Barty's Wandering Barty Crouch Jr., disapparated with all his might, only to crash into the barren landscape of the Himalayas. Injured and bleeding, he fell to his knees, a visceral pain coursing through him. Coughing up a mouthful of bright red blood, he glanced at the wand clutched tightly in his hand. Overwhelmed by heartbreak, he collapsed, unable to bear the pain any longer. As the bitter cold of the night set in, he gradually succumbed to sleep, drifting into a dream where he saw his mother. The last memory he had of his mother was her haggard face, but in his dream, she appeared healthy and vibrant. Mrs. Crouch approached him in the desolate landscape, squatting down to gently stroke his thin cheek with the same warmth she always had. "My child," she whispered. "Mother," little Barty replied in a cautious voice. "You are real, aren't you?" "Yes," Mrs. Crouch replied, her eyes brimming with tears. You have suffered so much. This sudden display of care and the long-lost maternal love brought little Barty to tears. He curled up, overwhelmed by emotion. Why? He asked. Why did I have to survive? Why didn't you just let me die in Azkaban? The only response was his mother's hand, holding his tightly. I'm such a fool. I miss you so much, Mother, he sobbed, longing for the infinite tolerance of her pampering, the gentle touch of snowflakes on his shoulders, and the safety her presence always provided. He yearned for more of his mother's love, but he also wanted to prove himself, to be the son that would make his father proud. However, his path had led him astray. In his most glorious moment, he joined Voldemort, only to quickly fall into an abyss of failure. His attempts to prove his worth ended with his father sending him to Azkaban, and his mother dying in prison to save him. It's because I wasn't strong enough, he said, trembling. I shouldn't have clung to life so desperately. I shouldn't have begged you, Mother. In his delirium, he pleaded with his mother's spirit. Take me away. We can be together again. He had been holding on to this pain since the day he learned of his mother's death. In his heart, it wasn't Mrs. Crouch who died in prison, but rather Barty Crouch Jr. himself. He felt buried in an abyss from which he couldn't escape. No, child, Mrs. Crouch said gently, removing a blade of grass from little Barty's hair. You must go back. No, I won't go back, Mother, little Barty protested anxiously. I want to leave. It's too painful here. You've always been a hard-working boy, Mrs. Crouch said softly. I've always known that. At home, I've been working hard to prove the Crouch name, he replied. She shook her head gently. It's the Crouch name that has bound you. You need to let it go. I can't, Mother, little Barty insisted. I'm a Crouch, the son of Barty Crouch. I never made him proud. No, you make me proud, a voice interjected. Startled, little Barty looked up to see his father, Barty Crouch Sr., emerging into the light. Recognized as one of the best ministers of magic in a century, he approached his wife and son with a sigh. I was wrong, Barty Sr. admitted. I never realized I was smothering you, my son. I took your excellence for granted, forgetting that a father and son are distinct individuals. I was disappointed when you joined the Death Eaters, confused about where my guidance had failed. Despite your mother's pleas, I chose the worst possible course of action out of fear for your safety. Looking at his son, who had struggled so hard to shed the Crouch name only to be the most bound by it, he said, You are my pride, my son. Placing a comforting hand on his thin shoulder, a hint of distress flashed in Barty Sr.'s eyes. Father, little Barty murmured, a mix of confusion and longing in his voice as the dream continued to unfold in the cold Himalayan night. The light intensified, attempting to whisk Barty Crouch Jr.'s parents away. No, don't leave me behind, he exclaimed, scrambling to his feet to chase after them. He was on the verge, of being engulfed by the white light alongside his parents when two hands halted him. We love you, son, old Barty said, shaking his head. You don't belong here. You should go back. There's no place for me there, little Barty protested, his determination unwavering. What about John Wick? Old Barty interjected, causing his son to pause. He needs someone now, more than ever. You must save him as he once saved you. My son, old Barty softened, a smile replacing his stern expression. You've always looked up to him as a mentor, and I've seen it. John is teetering on the brink. He needs your guidance as much as you once needed his. As the white light enveloped Barty Crouch Sr. and his wife, they gave their son a gentle yet powerful push. Be true to yourself. Leave the Crouch name behind and follow your heart, son. The white light vanished, and Barty Jr. found himself halted in his tracks, a tear escaping the corner of his eye. He felt the wetness on his face and opened his eyes to find a large furry face licking him. It was a young snow leopard, with its family observing from a distance. Barty Jr. gently pushed the leopard away, watching as it scampered back to its family. The adult snow leopard gave Barty Jr. a lingering look before leading its family away. Once the snow leopards were out of sight, Barty Jr. finally looked down at his wand in his hand, murmuring, John Wick needs me. With newfound resolve, he rose and began his journey towards the mountains. In the kingdom of Bhutan, John Wick had been in a meditative state for several days. The area had become a magnet for people from all walks of life, including Rita Skeeter, the formidable editor-in-chief of the Daily Prophet. She maintained order among the throng of tabloid reporters with an iron fist. Suddenly, the crowd stirred at the arrival of Gilderoy Lockhart, who navigated through the masses to reach Rita. Upon seeing John, Lockhart expressed his concern, but was quickly intercepted by Rita, who questioned his presence. Despite their familiarity, Rita was skeptical of Lockhart's intentions, knowing that John needed solitude. Lockhart, undeterred by the atmosphere, declared his intention to wait for John, highlighting the strong bond of friendship between them. Meanwhile, other notable figures, including Sophie and Remus Lupin, Lucius Malfoy, and Mr. Diggory, gathered, each reflecting on the heavy burden of hope placed on John's young shoulders. Lucius, fresh from diplomatic efforts, shared updates on the stabilization efforts in France and Germany, attributing the calm to John Wick's influence. The gathering of wizards and witches in Bhutan, all maintaining a respectful distance, waited in silent anticipation for their hero and leader to emerge from his contemplation, ready to face the challenges ahead together. John stood amidst the crowd, his focus sharper than it had ever been. Suddenly, an explosion erupted behind him. Little Barty, with a mix of determination and sorrow, gazed at John's solitary figure before approaching him. Lockhart, filled with confusion and skepticism, muttered to himself, "How did he manage to get through?" Nearby, Rita Skeeter debated whether to intervene. "Little Barty," John's voice, tinged with a numbness born of shock and grief, broke the silence. "Your father is dead." Little Barty hesitated for a moment, but continued his approach. Standing before John, he studied the young man's face, then slowly knelt, placing his hand over his heart in a gesture of solemn reverence. "Then please, avenge him, my king," he implored with utmost sincerity. Those words seemed to ignite a spark in John's previously vacant eyes. "Son of Barty Crouch, the sole heir of the Crouch lineage, I will have you by my side as a friend, just as your father was to me," John declared, his voice gaining strength. Raising his head, John's gaze moved beyond Little Barty, taking in the scene around them. The sun cast its light over the ruins, illuminating the faces of those who had chosen to stand with him. "Then we shall have revenge," John proclaimed, his voice resonant with a newfound resolve. The path ahead was clear, and together they would face whatever challenges it brought. Chapter 672, Leaders and Companions in Norway. In the crisp Norwegian air, Daphne Greengrass, the esteemed young lady of the Greengrass family, wielded her wand with precision and grace. Her wand emitted a brilliant light, ensnaring several wizards attempting to flee. "Prison them all," she commanded, her voice carrying a mix of authority and charm. Her followers promptly apprehended the three wizards, securing them as instructed. Spectators observed the captivating witch stride confidently beneath the banner, her wand raised high. With a flourish, the symbol of holy fire baptism transformed into a gleaming silver hand. "From this moment forward, this territory is safeguarded by John Wick," she proclaimed. "Fear not, fellow wizards, for John Wick shall usher in an era of peace." The crowd erupted in cheers, chanting John Wick's name as Daphne's face, beaming with pride, was immortalized in photographs. Newspapers, accompanied by owls, spread the news far and wide. Following the intervention of the Second Dynasty, nations have found stability, one headline read, followed by another, "They are the shining stars. Grindelwald beware. The youth are talented and fearless." The articles featured Fleur in France, Daphne in Norway, Neville and Malfoy in the UK, Edgar in Germany, and Cedric in Finland, all depicted in action. Neville concluded his Albanian journey by capturing several saints targeting Ollivander, while Cedric traversed Finland to confront a saint spreading discord. Each of them tackled challenges in their unique ways, emerging as luminaries in the wizarding world. United by a common belief, they were determined to handle the minutiae, allowing John to focus on his quest for vengeance. "What, drop out?" came a shocked response. "No, absolutely not." Malfoy reassured Astoria, who, inspired by the newspaper, contemplated leaving school to join their cause. "John? He's more than capable, even against the likes of Grindelwald or Dumbledore. Don't worry, just focus on your studies," he advised, his loyalty to John evident. Meanwhile, in the serene kingdom of Bhutan, John Wick reviewed the messages on his badge, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. His friend's dedication was clear, and he knew it was time to act. Facing Barty Crouch Jr., He extended his hand, promising, "I will avenge old Barty. Trust me." As Barty Jr. accepted his hand, John pulled him to his feet. "Perhaps I've lingered here too long," John mused, turning to face the gathering crowd. As camera flashes illuminated the scene, John's declaration resonated with those present. "Inform Grindelwald," he stated boldly, moving through the crowd. "He's provoked the wrong adversaries. Let him witness my resolve for revenge." The breaking dawn cast a hopeful light on the assembly. Rita Skeeter, ever the opportunist, seized the moment. "Quick, write this down and send it in." "John Wick declares war on Grindelwald. That's your headline," she instructed a nearby reporter, who protested, "But I'm not with the Daily Prophet." Unfazed, Rita countered, "You are now, and your salary's tripled." As John turned away, representatives from the International Federation of Wizards approached, seeking leadership. "We need someone to guide us," the Bulgarian Minister of Magic admitted, looking to John. "Is this a request or an inquiry?" John queried, his tone light yet commanding. Flustered, the minister clarified, "A request." Acknowledging the sincerity, John replied with a slight smile, "Then, show me the respect due." The minister, recognizing John's insight, conceded, "Percy Weasley was right. We need you." Attempting to manipulate had been futile against John's discernment. "The International Federation of Wizards humbly requests John Wick to assume leadership," the Bulgarian minister proposed. "Acceptable," John responded, clapping him on the shoulder before addressing the crowd. Raising his wand, he uttered, "Reparo." A golden light enveloped the wand, captivating all who watched, symbolizing not just the repair of a physical object, but the mending hope and unity among the wizarding community. Gazing upon the scene, the once shattered ruins were mending at a pace visible to the naked eye. Bathed in light, the castle that once soared in the sky was being restored to its former glory. The Bulgarian minister watched in awe, unable to hide his astonishment. "What a formidable display of magical power," he exclaimed. John demonstrated his strength, single-handedly repairing an entire city. His action spoke louder than words, convincing everyone that following him was the right choice. Amplifying his magical power, a golden halo burst forth from him, transforming into a wave of ripples that swiftly spread across the area. Wherever the ripples reached, destruction was replaced with repair. In just a minute, the city stood as if untouched, mirroring its state before the catastrophe. John then proceeded towards the stairs leading to the Sky Castle, with a diverse group of followers in tow. They watched in reverence as John ascended to the castle that their elected leaders had once destroyed. Now, John stood upon it, crowned as king. Headlines around the world heralded the dawn of a new era. International Confederation of Wizards pleads for John Wick to be leader. The new leader, John Wick. The second king deserves its name. The second dynasty quickly appeases wizards from all over the world. Percy Weasley to act as Minister for Magic. French Minister of Magic Charles Roland. This is a wise decision. John Wick, a wizard who had just come of age, became the youngest president in the history of the International Federation of Wizards. By repairing the city single-handedly, he showcased his formidable strength to all wizards. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Magic prepared to hold a funeral for the late Minister for Magic, Barty Crouch. All ministry employees were expected to attend. Barty Crouch Jr., looking at his hands, seemed lost in thought. "Not used to it?" John inquired gently, standing beside him. "It may have been frozen for a long time," he added, noting Barty Jr.'s discomfort. "It's just a feeling," Barty Jr. replied, glancing at his once amputated arm. Once Voldemort's most loyal follower, he now found himself a follower of John Wick. Fate indeed had a strange sense of humor. As they stood by the mausoleum burying the elder Crouch, John suggested, "How about we go to the tavern for a drink later?" Barty Jr. nodded in agreement. "I don't think I will refuse." The funeral paid tribute to all victims of the recent tragedies. In Silverhand Manor, a new tombstone was erected, while in Diagon Alley, a solemn procession with candles mourned the disaster. John and Barty Jr. made their way through the crowd to the Leaky Cauldron, where they found Hannah with red-rimmed eyes, a clear sign of her grief. Upon recognizing John, she attempted to refuse service. "Sorry, we don't sell alcohol today." "2 glasses of wine, please," John requested, settling down before adding, "No, make it 3. Hannah nodded and went to fetch the drinks. The tavern was noticeably cleaner than before, a testament to Hannah's diligent efforts to scrub away the grime, even removing a layer of patina from the armrests. When the wine arrived, John and Barty Jr. silently raised their glasses, a silent toast to those they were honoring. This drink was meant to symbolize the reconciliation between old Barty and his son, a moment they had unfortunately missed. After a moment of silence, their attention was drawn to a small flag adorned with the John Wick logo. "I bought it at Weasley's Wizard Wheezes," Hannah mentioned shyly, referring to it as the Banner of Asylum. John chuckled at the entrepreneurial spirit of the Weasley twins, appreciating their knack for seizing opportunities. Despite the lack of wind, he made the small flag flutter with a flick of his finger, admiring its symbolism. "The more protection flags, the better," he remarked, encouraging Hannah to spread the word that John Wick would stand against Grindelwald. "Okay," Hannah responded, placing a hand over her heart and bowing slightly with a smile. "My king." After a brief moment, she blushed, adding, "I think Neville did it this way. I don't know if it's right." "Very standard," John assured her, placing his glass down and preparing to leave. As Hannah began to protest, John and Barty Jr. vanished, leaving behind a tale of resilience, loyalty, and the promise of a new beginning. The Ministry of Magic was abuzz with the arrival of a new member. Barty Crouch Jr. had joined the ranks of the Aurors, ensuring that the Crouch legacy within the ministry would endure. This development came at a tumultuous time, as the conflict between the so-called Second King and Grindelwald had escalated. Their confrontations were marked by devastating explosions that laid bare the limitations of magic, shattering the wizard's long-held pride. In this era of upheaval, a peculiar phenomenon began to captivate the wizarding world. The emergence of individuals proclaimed as saints who spread what they called the baptism of holy fire drew the attention and wonder of many. This holy fire promised purification, but for those steeped in darkness, it threatened obliteration, much like a vampire exposed to the relentless sun. John found himself with a critical mission amidst this chaos. He was to seek out those who were in hiding, offering them a chance at redemption. Yet, for those who refused to emerge from the shadows, he knew they would ultimately face their demise, consumed by the very light they sought to evade. The stakes were high, and the path ahead fraught with danger, but John was determined to navigate this complex landscape where magic and faith collided to bring about a new dawn for the wizarding world. Chapter 673, Chaos and Stability, a Tug of War. John gazed at the newspaper detailing the explosion, his mind racing with thoughts. The article spoke of mysterious wizards being unmasked and seemingly weak muggles transforming into formidable adversaries. It painted a picture of Grindelwald's ambition to reconstruct the world, compelling wizards to align with his vision, a ship set on a course with no return. The Muggle governments, deeply concerned about the loss of their weapons, were unaware that Grindelwald had allies within their ranks, not through coercion by the Imperious Curse, but through willing collaboration. This revelation suggested that beyond the known leaders, there were others in the governments of various countries who were aware of the wizarding world. To prevent another purge of weapons, we must identify these collaborators, John mused, realizing the necessity of enlisting a wizard skilled in legilimency. Although capable himself, John couldn't afford to leave, uncertain of where Grindelwald might strike next. Contemplating legilimency, John's eyes narrowed with determination. He retrieved a piece of parchment and began to pen a message. As he did so, Tom, his snowy owl, landed beside him, keenly observing. "This time, you'll be the one to deliver this," John instructed, gently caressing the owl's head with a cautionary, "But be careful not to harm the owl." Basil, seemingly understanding, blinked comfortably, accepted a small dried fish as a reward, took the letter, and departed. John, puzzled by the exchange, turned to Riddle, who could only offer a tilted head in response. However, the confusion was short-lived as Basil returned with a reply. "You outperformed all the other owls?" John asked in disbelief, holding Astoria's response. Basil, with a confident look, glanced at the small dried fish. "This isn't a bribe," John remarked, somewhat exasperated, "and it won't sway me." Whether Basil comprehended or not, he simply took the dried fish and left. John had taken up residence at Silverhand Manor, a place bustling with activity and decisions to be made, such as addressing the aftermath in Poland. Tang Mi, returning to John's side, presented a list of casualties from the Polish branch of Silverhand's Johnny's store and a report of the damages incurred. Compensate the families of the deceased, John instructed after reviewing the list, emphasizing that material losses were of lesser concern. Tang Mi, with a grave tone, inquired about the Polish wizards who had escaped the meeting place. I'll discuss it with Percy, John decided, his attention shifting to documents from the Second Dynasty and the Ministry of Magic. The chaos was widespread, with a rise in extreme anti-Muggle sentiments among wizards. Let the magical ministries of various countries handle the arrests and deportations of these extremists. Any family found harboring them will be deemed complicit, John declared, his gaze icy. In these troubled times, he believed in the necessity of strict laws to maintain order where morality failed. Following John's orders, those who had joined the extremists on a whim found themselves imprisoned. Families eager to avoid repercussions came forward with information, while those protecting the extremists faced severe consequences. John's strategy was clear. Any area not flying the John Wick flag was likely harboring extremists and would be isolated accordingly. The Second Dynasty's vast resources became an invaluable asset to John. Despite the devastation caused by the explosions, the resilience of the Silverhand's Johnny store in Poland, protected by numerous defensive spells and amulets, showcased the power of magic against technology, restoring faith among the people. As Percy had once said, it was the ministry that needed John, not the other way around. The loss of Batty Sr. and Pierce had left a void, with Percy stepping in as the Minister of Magic, a role that seemed destined for him, given the circumstances. In the Ministry of Magic, Percy Weasley stood out as the most suitable candidate for the head of magical law enforcement. His qualifications extended beyond mere ability. His connections and the Weasley name, symbolizing the Old Alliance, coupled with the influence of the Second Dynasty, made him the prime choice. As the young Minister for Magic, Percy exceeded expectations. He dedicated himself to his office, reorganizing personnel to address the shortage of Aurors. With the aid of Azkaban, transformed into a vast magical power supply, equipment was developed to enhance an ordinary wizard's combat capabilities to match those of an Auror. The production of silver hand alchemy continued unabated, supplying arms to various countries and funneling the profits back into the Second Dynasty, bolstering its resources and pacifying the populace. This strategy strengthened the dynasty, making it an attractive ally for other nations seeking security and prosperity. The expansion of production lines under the Second Dynasty's umbrella drove down costs, creating a self-sustaining cycle of growth. On one hand, there was chaotic idealism, on the other, a well-oiled financial machine. John aimed to showcase the benefits of living under such orderly conditions. Heinrich embarked on a journey to Germany to celebrate the opening of a new Johnny Silverhand store, while King ventured to America, leveraging his knowledge of Muggle weaponry with the assistance of Ledesley's maternal family. Fleur, having ascended to the status of France's foremost enchantress, found herself besieged by suitors, much to the Delacour family's dismay. Percy, meanwhile, grappled with the responsibilities of his office, and Bill took to learning French and adopting a more refined appearance. The UK remained largely unaffected by these developments, with its wizarding community showing little interest in the notion of sainthood, despite the enticing offers it brought. Percy's duties also required him to travel abroad, during which John advised him against promoting the position of Penello within the Muggle Conciliation Committee, a subdivision of the Department of Magical Accidents and Disasters. This committee, tasked with mediating between the wizarding and Muggle worlds, had historically been considered inconsequential. However, John emphasized its future significance, suggesting it would serve as a vital link for the Ministry of Magic to engage with the external world, especially in light of recent events that had exposed the wizarding community to the Muggle government. The theft of weapons and the bombing in Poland had opened a window to the wizarding world, raising the question of whether it would be the wizards or the Muggles who would take the initiative in this new era of interaction. Meanwhile, Muggle governments, while publicly silent about the weapon thefts to avoid causing panic, recognized the gravity of the situation. The explosion in Poland had underscored the potential for disaster, prompting a re-evaluation of their stance towards the wizarding world and the necessity of establishing a dialogue, whether for cooperation or confrontation. The air was thick with unease. What had been unleashed was not merely a swath of ruins, but vast expanses of land that had mysteriously emerged in Warsaw. Poland, the sovereign of this newfound territory, was taken aback, its government encircled by a whirlwind of confusion. The presence of a wizarding community and the protective measures of the Ministry of Magic had somehow contained the blast's full force. Despite these precautions, the repercussions were felt deeply, with over 1,000 residents of Warsaw impacted, sending shockwaves through the city. The military swiftly assumed control of the area, while international agents converged to unravel the mystery behind the incident. Scientists delved into the origins of the suddenly appeared land, unearthing numerous skeletons that hinted at a past long buried. Their attention was drawn to the sole structure that had withstood the chaos. Disguised as a researcher, an agent ventured inside the building, his eyes scanning the desolate interior. He moved with caution, aware of the secrets that might lurk within. His exploration was abruptly halted when he stumbled upon an object. He picked it up, examining it closely. The inscription was clear, yet it sent a shiver down his spine. "Silver Hand," he whispered to himself, the words hanging in the air, heavy with implications yet to be understood. Chapter 674, The Muggle War Against the Wizarding World. In the Wick household, the atmosphere was a blend of casual domestic life and the undercurrents of global unrest. Watson Wick, with a soda in hand, and his daughter Ariana, who was momentarily distracted by the television, represented a scene of normalcy. However, the news broadcasting from the TV hinted at a world still grappling with chaos. "Ariana, I've got us a new soda flavor to try," Watson announced, momentarily drawing his daughter's attention away from the screen and towards the refrigerator. As Ariana excitedly made her way to the new treat, Watson reclaimed control over the television, his expression turning somber as he absorbed the news about Poland. Meanwhile, their pet, Cheeky, faced a less exciting prospect, a cabbage for its meal, much to its dismay. Ariana, in a playful act of revenge, insisted Cheeky finish its greens. Her triumph was short-lived, however, as Mrs. Wick caught her with the soda. Ariana's quick attempt to blame Cheeky for the soda did little to sway her mother, who lamented the decision to leave Watson in charge of the children. Outside, the ordinary life of the Wicks contrasted sharply with the world's larger concerns. Dudley, a neighbor, ran past their window, oblivious to the gravity of the news that Watson was watching. An explosion in Warsaw, initially suspected to be a gas leak, had been claimed by the international terrorist group, 10 Rings. The world watched, anxious about the implications. In a more secluded setting, Mycroft, a figure of considerable influence and intellect, pondered over a peculiar piece of wood retrieved from Warsaw. The wood, identified as sorbus, harbored a strange magnetic field, hinting at energies beyond the mundane. The runes inscribed on it suggested a magical origin, a fact that intrigued Mycroft. The explosion in Warsaw, powerful yet mysteriously mitigated, hinted at forces at play that defied conventional understanding. The arrival of the Prime Minister interrupted Mycroft's contemplation. The Prime Minister, drawn to the wooden artifact, shared a personal anecdote about wizards, invoking a sense of wonder and nostalgia. Yet, it was his mention of Kingsley Shacklebolt, a former assistant, that steered the conversation towards the realm of the magical. The Prime Minister's inquiry about belief in magic and wizards, directed at Mycroft, bridged the gap between the mundane and the magical, suggesting a world where the two intersected more closely than most would dare to imagine. This chapter, set against the backdrop of a world in turmoil, juxtaposes the ordinary lives of the Wicks with the extraordinary implications of the events in Warsaw. The narrative weaves together themes of family, global unrest, and the thin veil separating the magical from the mundane, setting the stage for a story where the boundaries between worlds blur. The minister chuckled incredulously. "You're not seriously suggesting that Shaker is a wizard, are you?" "Yes," the Prime Minister affirmed, casting a wary glance towards the door. "It might sound absurd, but every prime minister has had encounters with wizards. Mycroft, visibly shaken by the revelation, pressed, "Are you implying that there's a wizard among the prime minister's staff?" "No, the arrangement wasn't made by the prime minister," he clarified, shaking his head. "In the wizarding world, there are institutions akin to our government, and Shaker is affiliated with one of them. He infiltrated and became my assistant." The prime minister offered a wry smile, adding, "I only discovered 2 years ago that the person I thought was merely an assistant was actually a wizard. He claimed he was here to protect me." "This is preposterous," Mycroft remarked after a brief pause. "What exactly are you trying to say?" The prime minister glanced around nervously, as if fearing the sudden appearance of a wizard, before leaning in to whisper to Mycroft, "They are closer than we think." He gestured towards a piece of wood. "We might not recognize them, but they know us all too well." Mulling over the implications, Mycroft picked up the piece of wood, pondering, magic wizards. If the explosion in Poland was the work of a wizard, it could spell disaster for all nations. "On the land that emerged, there were bodies," Mycroft stated calmly. "Wizards are not invincible." The prime minister nodded in agreement. The sight of a wizard materializing in the fireplace of his highly secured office had left him sweating profusely. Despite the office being one of the most secure locations globally, it was effortlessly breached by wizards. Their arrogance made them view humans as mere ants. This encounter planted a seed of curiosity and fear about sorcery in the prime minister's heart. Now, witnessing the events in Poland, wizards seemed less enigmatic and not beyond mortality. Under the scrutiny of technology, wizards could no longer remain elusive. A covert operation was initiated on Downing Street in England. The piece of wood was stored in MI's top-secret warehouse, alongside the database codenamed Zero. Similar activities were quietly unfolding in various countries, establishing a clandestine link between wizards and Muggle leaders. This not only facilitated concealment from the wizarding world, but also cultivated an aura of mystery. However, the veil of mystery has now been lifted, casting wizards as potential adversaries in the eyes of Muggles. The revelation that the British Prime Minister had a wizard assistant, unbeknownst to him until the assistant disclosed his identity, was particularly alarming. If not for the long-standing mystique surrounding their existence, the response might have been more severe than mere surveillance. Mycroft, who orchestrated the British operation, dubbed it Wizards Invade. He cautioned, "Be vigilant. A wizard might be closer than you think. We need to understand more about their lives, their powers, and their potential malice." Indeed, Grindelwald's strategy proved effective. With sufficient knowledge, the vulnerable could be eliminated. Wizards, faced with Muggle hostility, must demonstrate their strength to resist. While wizards do not initiate wars, Muggles do. In a few years, satellites will expose hidden wizarding locales. With global surveillance and monitoring, the question remains, can wizards continue to survive? Chapter 675, Lockhart foots the bill and Gringotts faces destruction. In the era of the Second Dynasty, 2 initiatives stood paramount. The first was the introduction of the Little Wizard card, a concept that Mr. Greengrass, with his keen business acumen, recognized as a monumental opportunity. In the long term, we could control at least a third, if not half, of the market's wealth, he mused, a spark of ambition lighting up his eyes. While he might not rival the Malfoys in social standing, in the realm of commerce, he considered himself their equal. As the pioneering manager of the ancient fund, Lucius Malfoy had astutely donated half of the funds to the Little Wizard Foundation, showcasing his business savvy. The cost of producing a potion could be broken down into 3 main components: materials, technology, and transportation. Material costs were the highest, followed by labor wages, and finally, transportation expenses. By addressing these costs and optimizing internal processes, the price of a potion could be significantly reduced. The strategy was simple. Buying in bulk often leads to lower prices, and the substantial funds directed towards the Little Wizard card facilitated this approach. Moreover, these costs were further minimized by the Second Dynasty's internal management. The second critical initiative was to subtly stabilize the market by attracting more franchisees and standardizing prices. Achieving these goals would mean that not just the funds of Little Wizards, but all wizarding money could be transitioned to this new system. After all, the convenience of a single card for all transactions was undeniable compared to the cumbersome process of withdrawing money from Gringotts and enduring the disdainful demeanor of the goblins. "It's a gradual usurpation of Gringotts," Mr. Greengrass realized, almost in disbelief. Gringotts had long stood as the sole banking institution in the wizarding world, primarily because of the goblins' unparalleled craftsmanship in coin-making. Galleons and similar currencies were unique and impossible to counterfeit, ensuring the goblins' independence even after their defeat in wars against wizards. However, the introduction of the Little Wizard card represented a groundbreaking shift. While theoretically counterfeitable, replicating the card would require alchemical skills surpassing even those of renowned alchemists, a feat more daunting than creating a philosopher's stone. The wizarding community had yet to fully grasp the implications, largely due to their long-standing trust in Gringotts as the safest place for their wealth. But as Mr. Greengrass pondered the future, he envisioned a day when the Second Dynasty would extend this card system to adult wizards, fundamentally transforming the wizarding world's economy. Traditional currencies would not vanish, but would become less prevalent, primarily stored in the Second Dynasty's vaults. Contemplating this shift, Mr. Greengrass's gaze fell upon a series of 9 black cards before him. Similar in size to the Little Wizard card, these black cards were distinguished by an intricate design of a tree in gold, exuding an aura of ancient mystique. "Magic cards," he murmured, picking one up and holding it to the light. The tree design seemed to come alive under the sunlight, revealing the true potential of these cards. Each of the top 10 ancient races was to receive 9 of these magic cards, intended for distribution among the wealthy and venerable families. Their scarcity would make them highly coveted by the elite, leveraging the influence of these dignitaries to popularize the cards among the broader wizarding populace. This strategy, Mr. Greengrass believed, would not only secure the financial dominance of the Second Dynasty, but also herald a new era in the wizarding world's economy. Wizards quickly recognized the convenience and symbolism of the magic card. Mr. Greengrass discovered that there were a total of 100 cards in circulation. Aside from the 90 cards held by members of the Old Alliance, a few notable individuals, including Gilderoy Lockhart, possessed one. The allure of such a card was undeniable, promising to revolutionize the way wizards thought about banking. Gringotts, it seemed, was on the verge of becoming merely a mint. At the newly opened Leaky Cauldron music bar in France, Gilderoy Lockhart was the center of attention, generously covering the evening's expenses. His flamboyant use of the magic card captivated everyone present. When he handed his card to the waiter, who then processed the payment using an alchemy device adorned with purple crystals, the crowd was mesmerized. "That looks like a wizard card, doesn't it?" inquired the young Karma, curiosity piqued. Lockhart, basking in the attention, corrected him with a flourish. "It's a magic card," he explained, emphasizing its significance. The mention of Lord Wick piqued everyone's interest further. Lockhart, enjoying his role as the bearer of exclusive news, explained that the magic card was not just a mere trinket, but a symbol of status and privilege among adult wizards. As he spoke, crystal cups flew through the air, assembling into a champagne tower that dazzled the onlookers. The waiter presented it as a complimentary gesture to Lockhart, highlighting the privileges that came with being a black card user. This display of opulence and the promise of exclusive benefits ignited a fervent desire among the guests. They all wanted a magic card, not just for its practical uses, but for the prestige it conferred. The incident at the bar sparked widespread interest in the magic card. Stories of its influence spread rapidly, enhancing its desirability among the wizarding elite. Tales of young masters flaunting their wealth with the card and even using it to settle disputes became legendary. The magic card had become a coveted symbol of wealth and status. This fervor played right into the hands of the Old Alliance, who leveraged the magic card's allure to amass a fortune from those eager to obtain one. The widespread adoption of the card hinted at a potential shift in power, with the Second Dynasty poised to eclipse Gringotts as the financial heart of the wizarding world. Interestingly, the lack of antitrust laws in the wizarding world allowed the Second Dynasty to expand unchecked, its influence growing by the day. The benefits it brought ensured that even the Ministry of Magic turned a blind eye to its rapid ascent. Amidst this financial revolution, a new adage emerged among wizards. Have money, show off your magic card. This sentiment underscored the profound impact of the magic card on wizarding society, marking a new era of opulence and influence. John had meticulously planned to gradually stir the interests of the wizarding world's elite families before engaging the broader community of ordinary wizards. His strategy was to leverage their vanity initially, but an unexpected event nearly derailed his entire scheme. On a day that began like any other, with John finalizing a proposal to reduce consumption taxes for the Little Wizard Fund and addressing the resettlement of survivors from a devastating attack by Grindelwald, something unforeseen happened. Standing on the balcony, John basked in the warmth of the sun, a rare moment of tranquility amidst his busy schedule. Tangmi entered the room quietly, placing a glass of water on the table. "How's Oz?" John inquired, his concern evident in his tone. "She's devastated, but she's already back at work," Tangmi replied with a sigh. "Right now, her main focus is uncovering information about those saints." John nodded in understanding. "The role of Director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement is a challenging one to fill," he acknowledged, preparing to return to his desk. Just then, an owl swooped in, dropping a newspaper from a distance of 5 meters before hastily retreating. It seemed that Basil, the owl, had become wary of approaching Silverhand Manor too closely, likely due to a previous scare. John caught the newspaper effortlessly, and, with a flick of his wand, cleansed it with a spell. His eyes were immediately drawn to the bold headline that dominated the front page, and the accompanying image of a goblin amidst the ruins painted a grim picture. Gringotts attacked. The headline was stark, and the implications were immediate and far-reaching. Gringotts, the Wizarding Bank, stood not only as a financial institution, but as a symbol of security and stability within the magical community. An attack on such a cornerstone of wizarding society was more than just a physical assault. It was an attack on the very fabric of their world. John's mind raced as he absorbed the news. The attack on Gringotts would undoubtedly have repercussions that extended far beyond the immediate damage. It would instill fear and uncertainty among the wizarding populace, potentially destabilizing the already fragile peace that had been painstakingly rebuilt after Grindelwald's reign of terror. As he pondered the ramifications, John realized that this event could either hinder his plans or serve as a catalyst for change. The attack underscored the need for stronger community bonds and mutual support among wizards. Perhaps, in the wake of this tragedy, there was an opportunity to galvanize the wizarding world, to unite them towards a common goal of rebuilding and fortification. Determined to turn this crisis into an opportunity, John set the newspaper aside and began to outline a new strategy. It was time to rally the wizarding community, to inspire them to come together in the face of adversity. The attack on Gringotts would not be the end, but a beginning, a call to action for all wizards to stand united. Chapter 676, Changing the Tide and Gaining Strength. In the Tower of Nurmengard, a gathering of wizards, drawn by the promise of becoming saints, rallied together. Their cheers for Grindelwald, to save the decaying magical world, echoed through the halls. Regardless of time or place, the man with white hair and heterochromatic eyes seemed to possess an endless allure. "Grindelwald," they chanted. "Lead us to cleanse this world, Grindelwald." Their calls filled the tower as Grindelwald turned away from the crimson-stained basin. The blood on his hands had been cleansed, and by the time he stepped forward, no trace remained. The air was thick with their cheers, a loud repetition of his name. With the Elder Wand in hand, Grindelwald exhaled a breath that turned into mist, spreading into the sky. Within the mist, visions of a past goblin rebellion emerged. "Fairy," Grindelwald's voice resonated with everyone. "These ugly, greedy creatures." The scene shifted, showing wizards and goblins clashing. "They are disloyal," he declared, as the imagery changed again, this time showing the goblins defeated and the wizards victorious. "But they revel in possessions that aren't theirs, monopolizing all the wealth in the wizarding world," he continued. In the mist, a goblin, once armored, now donned in a suit, looked at every wizard with a greedy, disdainful gaze. "Why?" Grindelwald questioned, waving his wand. "Why should proud wizards be subjugated by goblins?" "We claimed victory, yet the inept have placed us beneath the goblins," he stated, his voice striking every bewildered wizard's heart like a hammer. Why indeed? The wizards had won, yet all their wealth was entrusted to goblins for safekeeping. Memories of goblins looking down on them in their poverty, or eyeing them greedily as if they were thieves, flashed through the minds of the gathered wizards. "It's the work of mediocrity." Grindelwald's voice escalated. "They squandered our hard-earned victory. We will reclaim it and erase those vile, filthy beings from existence," he proclaimed. "This world belongs to wizards, and goblins have no place ruling over it." The saints, now fully incited, were eager to eradicate all goblins. They recalled how Gringotts had scorned them in their times of need. The goblins were parasites, leeching off the wizarding community, weakening it from within. Now, Grindelwald's voice returned to a calm, commanding tone. He aimed his wand at the mist and softly commanded, "Do what you must." The saints responded with a cry, raising their wands to send green sparks that dispersed the mist. The image of Gringotts within the mist shattered and vanished. Leaving Nurmengard, they stormed the Gringotts banks across various nations, starting with Switzerland. They overpowered the troll guards, dragged the goblins from behind their counters, and burned them alive. The doors to the vaults were blasted open, and fiendfire was unleashed, consuming everything within. Money? Their ideals transcended the need for wealth. They fought for the essence of magic, believing it righteous to return everything to its magical origins. The once arrogant and greedy goblins now cowered in fear. They loudly cursed the intruders, but those who shouted the loudest were dragged out and burned before the crowd. The air over the Swiss Gringotts was thick with the stench of burning flesh, leaving behind only ruins and a sole surviving goblin. It was a tragedy. Even with past grievances against Gringotts, no one had dared to act so brazenly. The goblins had believed their control over the wealth made them untouchable, but they were gravely mistaken. The world had changed, and with the saints believing the end was near, the goblins' wealth meant nothing. After a series of events, a palpable tension had settled over everyone, wizards and goblins alike. The long-held belief that Gringotts was the most secure place in the world to store one's wealth had been shattered. The revelation that the vaults could be breached sent shockwaves through the community. In response, a wizard, spurred by a sudden impulse, dashed to Gringotts to withdraw his funds. This action set off a chain reaction among the affluent, leading to a frenzy of withdrawals. Amidst the chaos, the goblins found themselves at odds with the wizards. Griffook, in particular, tried to prevent the panicked crowd from emptying their vaults. "You can't do this," he protested. The wizards retorted, "Actually, we can." From the goblins' perspective, the concept of ownership was fundamentally different. They believed that the creator of an item retained its ownership, which meant that the gold coins, crafted by goblin hands, still belonged to them. Thus, the mass withdrawal of funds was seen as a direct theft of goblin treasures, igniting conflicts within the walls of Gringotts. However, not everyone was caught up in the turmoil. The Weasley twins, for instance, observed the situation with a sense of detachment. Florin Fusco, the proprietor of the local ice cream shop, found their calm demeanor odd and inquired, "Aren't you worried about your gold disappearing?" Fred responded with a confident, "Of course not." George revealed a black card, adding, "We moved our money to a much safer place a while ago." Florin was taken aback. "A magic card," he exclaimed. George explained, "There's nowhere safer than the savings vaults of the Second Dynasty. Srac, it's a place where you can purchase anything you desire without fear of losing your money." Fred chimed in with a grin, "And don't forget to shop at Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. We welcome magic cards." Florin, inspired by their words, exclaimed, "Yes, the Second Dynasty offers stability and convenience without the risk of depreciation. It's the perfect solution." However, his excitement soon faded as he lamented, "That's wonderful, but I don't have a magic card. They're incredibly rare." Fred feigned surprise. "You don't know?" he asked. Florin, puzzled, replied, "Know what?" George elaborated, Our benevolent king has opened up applications for magic cards in light of the recent crisis. Just head to Johnny Silverhand's store and apply at the magic card service counter. Florin's interest was piqued. Really? Without another word, he hurried off, eager to apply. The Weasley twins' conversation had not gone unnoticed. Their reputation ensured that their endorsement of the magic card application process caught the attention of many. The news spread like wildfire, causing the queue at Gringotts to disperse as wizards rushed to Johnny Silverhand's store, hoping to secure their financial future. The application process was thorough, requiring registration, verification, a drop of blood, and fingerprints. Amidst the applicants, a werewolf hesitated, unsure if he would be eligible. Gathering his courage, he approached the counter and asked, "Can a werewolf apply for a magic card?" The witch processing the applications was momentarily taken aback, but quickly recovered. "Aren't you a resident of the werewolf community?" Mr. Chudai had already invited the residents to apply yesterday. The werewolf, who had come from out of town after hearing about the werewolf equality bill in the UK, was surprised. He had not expected such inclusivity. "Since you haven't applied yet, please join the queue," the witch instructed. As he moved to take his place in line, a wizard expressed impatience. "Hurry up and line up. Don't think that you can cut ahead just because you're a werewolf." The comment, tinged with prejudice, underscored the lingering tensions between magical creatures and wizards, even in times of crisis. "Having privileges because you're a werewolf." The wizard's accusation resonated in the air. Another wizard, tinged with envy, chimed in. "If only I had a werewolf community registration number, I'd have been there long ago. Plus, you can apply for medical insurance after moving in. It's incredibly enviable." It's important not to overlook the preferential treatment werewolves receive from wizards. Their allegiance to the werewolf community's second king, who shows unmistakable favoritism, allows them access to benefits like medical insurance, a luxury far beyond what is available in other communities. Wizards, contrary to popular belief, are not immune to illness. In fact, their magical mishaps can sometimes lead to severe complications. Silver Cross Hospital, backed by substantial funding and staffed by top-tier therapists, rivals St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries in both quality and cost. Yet, with medical insurance, the expenses are slashed by half, making it a highly sought-after benefit. Even the Malfoys, the patriarch and heir of a prestigious ancient wizarding family, covet such medical insurance. Meanwhile, a werewolf found himself pushed to the back of the line by a wizard, still reeling from the encounter. Traditionally, mingling with werewolves was something most sought to avoid. However, the perspective of this group of wizards painted being a werewolf in an unexpectedly enviable light. All he wanted now was to share this revelation with his fellow werewolves, especially those abroad who faced far grimmer circumstances. In some regions, werewolves were exploited, treated as mere commodities rather than beings with rights and privileges. This stark contrast highlighted the unique position of werewolves within this particular wizarding community, sparking a mix of emotions ranging from envy to a newfound sense of pride among them. Chapter 6777, Justice and Evil at Silverhand Manor. John twirled the ring between his fingers, his expression one of confusion. "Grindelwald, what are you planning?" A cold chill flashed in his eyes. Closing them briefly, when he reopened them, the darkness had vanished, replaced by a shade of gray. Through this new lens, John witnessed the attack on Gringotts and the zeal of the so-called saints. He saw death, an omnipresent death. It was clear to him that a confrontation with Grindelwald was inevitable. As the gray faded from his eyes, returning to their normal state, John was left pondering. Is this merely a coincidence? He found it hard to believe. The incident at Gringotts had inadvertently served as a catalyst for the Second Dynasty's momentum. The bank's credibility had taken a hit, leading to a crisis of confidence among the wizarding community. This shift had inadvertently benefited the Second Dynasty, as wizards began to directly utilize its credits. Even if Garen faced issues, the continued recognition of the magic card by the Second Dynasty ensured the system's functionality. The rapid development of the Second Dynasty was, in part, accelerated by Gringotts' misfortune. While other nations might hesitate, the UK's wizarding community placed their unwavering trust in the Second Dynasty, readily exchanging their tangible wealth for the convenience of the magic card. The werewolves were among the first to embrace this change, led by Chudai, who, without a moment's doubt, placed his faith in this seemingly absurd new system. His community followed suit, trusting John implicitly, despite never being asked to do so. This placed an immense burden on John. The werewolves' financial stability was now intricately tied to his success. "This trust is both flattering and terrifying," John murmured to himself. "The fear of failure has never been more real." The weight of this trust was suffocating, transforming any potential failure of his into a collective disaster. Shaking off these thoughts, John turned his attention to the day's newspaper. The front page depicted Gringotts' employees in despair, the bank having been nearly emptied. "They can no longer guarantee the safety of their assets," John noted, discarding the paper. For him, the current state of Gringotts was just the beginning. He aimed to democratize the goblin-minted currency, stripping the goblins of their storage rights and leaving them with only the right to mint under the Ministry of Magic's supervision. He was biding his time, waiting for the goblins to capitulate. Meanwhile, the so-called saints preached justice, seeking to purify the world with holy fire, targeting both the corrupt goblins and their money. Their radical actions were halted by the Ministry of Magic, which had arrested over 20 of them by the month's end. John had no qualms about sending these zealots straight to Azkaban, where they served as fuel for the magical furnace, ironically becoming the very nourishment they sought to eradicate. A thorough investigation of their minds revealed no connection to Grindelwald, a fact that John found surprising. "He's been planning this for a long time," John mused, reflecting on Grindelwald's actions since their last duel. The transformation of Nurmengard was no small feat, akin to altering Hogwarts' room of requirement with a single individual's power. "My lord, your tea," Tang Mi announced, placing a freshly brewed cup beside John. "Thank you, Tang Mi," John replied, taking a sip of the black tea, noting the freshly boiled water used. Tang Mi's mouth twitched slightly at the observation. Setting down his cup, John's expression remained unchanged. Grindelwald is not like Voldemort. He excels in concealment and possesses the foresight to plan his moves meticulously. Hiding in plain sight is his forte. "In a place where the future remains unseen," John mused, his curiosity piqued about Dumbledore's legendary defeat of Grindelwald. It was clear to him that such strategic thinking was far from ordinary, bordering on the prophetic. So how do we defeat someone who can foresee the future? Tang Mi pondered, his determination to avenge his friend unwavering despite Grindelwald's seemingly insurmountable advantage. "Perhaps it's time to shift our perspective," John suggested, his voice carrying a hint of strategy. "Let's start with the Muggles. Grindelwald's willingness to involve Muggle weaponry is a step beyond anything the previous Dark Lord considered. But this interaction with Muggles means he's bound to leave traces behind. I do hope our master tracker can unearth some leads," John continued, his thoughts turning to a potential candidate, albeit one currently unavailable due to pregnancy, Nymphadora Tonks. Despite this setback, John was confident in their alternative, a skilled tracker, though not a master of disguise and somewhat costly. The Ministry of Magic is in the midst of stabilizing after a rocky transfer of power. In times like these, external intervention becomes necessary, John noted, tapping his fingers thoughtfully on the table. The recent turmoil in Bhutan had left over 300 ministerial positions and countless official roles vacant, a dangerous void if not promptly addressed. Swift, decisive action was needed, perhaps even a complete overhaul of certain departments, with retired employees brought back for retraining to ensure stability. Grindelwald's recent actions had nearly brought the wizarding world to its knees, elevating his notoriety above even the despised Hirebow and making him the most formidable figure in the magical community. Even Voldemort would have to acknowledge Grindelwald's supremacy, given his direct assault on the International Federation of Wizards, a feat Voldemort never achieved. "The outcome is inevitable. Either he falls, or I do," John concluded, the gravity of their confrontation with Grindelwald weighing heavily on him. The line between good and evil is often blurred, especially in the wizarding world where perspectives can drastically differ. To some, the actions of the so-called saints are just, while others see them as nothing short of madness. The growing threat from Muggles only serves to exacerbate the already extreme tendencies among wizards. In the Muggle world, a mysterious incident at a farm resulted in the death of all its animals and the owner with no discernible cause. The family, previously healthy, showed no signs of illness or poisoning, leaving the authorities baffled. Mycroft Holmes, confronted with a corpse that showed no signs of foul play, consulted with the senior forensic doctor, who was equally perplexed. "They seem to have died simply because of death itself," the doctor explained, a statement that would confound anyone lacking Mycroft's intellect. "No wounds, no diseases, no poisoning," the doctor continued, recalling a similar case from over 50 years ago in Little Hangleton, where the Riddle family met an inexplicable end. The case had remained a mystery, with the blame unjustly placed on the family's gardener. Intrigued, Mycroft instructed a police officer to retrieve all available records on the Riddle family's death, hoping to uncover a connection between these mysterious incidents and the shadowy world of magic that lay beyond the understanding of most Muggles. Mycroft gazed at his subordinate, his voice steady but imbued with an underlying urgency. "Deploy a team to Little Hangleton." The subordinate, seeking clarification, inquired, "What level of readiness should we aim for?" Mycroft paused, his gaze intensifying as he contemplated the gravity of their mission. "Level 1, he finally declared. His tone was calm, yet it carried the weight of the situation. "We're potentially dealing with wizards of an unknown nature," he continued, "and there's a significant chance they could be malevolent." His understanding of wizards was limited, but Mycroft was no stranger to assessing threats. The very notion of wizards conjured images of beings wielding powers beyond the ordinary, capable of feats that defied explanation. In the face of such unknowns, it was a nature, all human instinct, to err on the side of caution, to label these enigmatic figures as evil until proven otherwise. After all, it was rare for entities to emerge from the shadows, proclaiming themselves champions of goodness and justice. "Deploy the Level 1 configuration. If that proves insufficient to apprehend a wizard," Mycroft stated with a resolve that brooked no argument, "then it's time for humanity to reassess its approach. We must be prepared to adapt, to employ whatever means necessary to ensure our safety." His words hung in the air, a stark reminder of the unpredictable and potentially perilous path that lay ahead. The mission to Little Hangleton was not merely a test of their preparedness. It was a confrontation with the unknown, a challenge to their very understanding of the world. Chapter 6 and 78, The Magic Card Revolution. In an empty vault within Gringotts, a little goblin hopped around frantically, appearing utterly deranged. "Drops! It's all drops!" he exclaimed, his voice echoing through the hollow space. "What's gotten into him?" someone asked, puzzled by the goblin's behavior. "It seems all the clients he managed have withdrawn their money," Griffook explained, observing the distressed goblin before turning his attention to the other vacant vaults. To goblins, an empty vault was a fate worse than death. Yet, this madness seemed isolated to just one. As they passed the VIP area, once guarded by a fire dragon, Griffook reminisced. Gringotts had intended to employ another fire dragon for security, but with the mysterious disappearance of these creatures, they were forced to resort to using giant monsters, like trolls wielding large clubs, as an alternative. This makeshift solution underscored the dire straits Gringotts found itself in. The remaining few vaults belonged either to families of deceased wizards or to individuals imprisoned in Azkaban. The future looked bleak for Gringotts. "Curse that John Wick," a goblin muttered under his breath. The introduction of magic cards by John Wick had precipitated their current predicament. Furthermore, the Second Dynasty's preference for storing money at home rather than in Gringotts had significantly reduced their clientele. "We've lost 28 major customers. No, 27, excluding the Weasleys," he corrected himself, considering the modest sum in the Weasley family's vault hardly worth mentioning. Griffook couldn't help but feel a sense of impending doom for Gringotts. Known among his peers for his foresight, he could see the writing on the wall. The era of Gringotts was coming to an end, hastened by the advent of the magic card. The introduction of magic cards revolutionized the wizarding world, offering an unprecedented convenience. "Did you get a magic card?" became a common greeting, implying that one wasn't keeping up with the times without it. Despite initial skepticism, the allure of convenience won many over. These cards, primarily accepted within the Second Dynasty's establishments, made transactions effortless and eliminated the need to carry cumbersome purses filled with coins. Magic cards came in various tiers, with the regular ones being bronze and the most prestigious being black. The Weasley twins boasted black cards, a status symbol of sorts, while Mr. Weasley, as the head of the family, naturally possessed one as well. Ron, however, felt left out with his ordinary card, expressing his discontent at the family dinner. "You need to earn more," the twins teased, suggesting that accumulating 100,000 galleons would qualify him for an upgrade. Ron's plea to his father for a card was met with a serious response. Mr. Weasley, reflecting on Percy's advice, emphasized the importance of self-reliance, hoping Ron would understand the value of earning his achievements. The dinner conversation shifted when Angelina, observing the twins' banter, inquired about Ron's relationship with Lavender, showing sisterly concern. Ron, caught off guard, denied any recent contact, his discomfort evident as he awkwardly continued eating. The family's laughter and teasing filled the room, a moment of lightheartedness amidst the changes sweeping through their world. George brandished the knife playfully and said, "So, you've been in touch with Hermione?" Ron, caught off guard and sipping pumpkin juice, choked. "You're really terrible at keeping secrets," George shrugged, adding, "Last time Hermione was here, you couldn't take your eyes off her." "I did not," Ron protested, flustered. "Angelina, being a girl, probably understands Hermione's thoughts better." "Though it's quite surprising," Angelina chimed in. "A wonderful girl like Hermione Granger doesn't seem like a match for you." "Angelina," Mrs. Weasley interjected, her frown indicating her displeasure. "Sorry," Fred offered an insincere apology, "but Hermione is now a respected employee at the Ministry of Magic. Dad was singing her praises just the other day for her work in the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures." Ron felt a pang of inadequacy. It wasn't that his brothers didn't support him, but they were aware of how well Hermione had connected with John. The thought crossed his mind. How could a woman, who was akin to a lioness in her strength and courage, ever fall for someone less remarkable? Ron, though not a lesser being, couldn't help but feel dwarfed by the comparison. Overwhelmed and unable to eat, Ron muttered, "I'm not hungry," and retreated upstairs. Mrs. Weasley shot the twins a glare. "He's your brother," she scolded. "That's exactly why we're trying to spare him further pain," George retorted quickly, trying to justify their teasing. Mrs. Weasley sighed, feeling sorry for Ron, while Mr. Weasley remarked, "This has gone too far." "All right," Fred conceded, "we'll look after our dear brother." "And not mention," George began. "Yes, we won't bring up John and Hermione again," George concluded, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender, though Angelina doubted their ability to keep such a promise. After all, if she had met someone like John during her first year, she doubted she'd ever consider anyone else. Meanwhile, a revolutionary new credit system was being introduced in the wizarding world, capturing the attention of wizards everywhere, as well as the ministries of magic from various countries. "What does this mean, Second King?" asked the new Minister of Magic from Norway during a meeting of the International Confederation of Wizards. John, unfazed by the question, replied, "I've identified flaws in our current system." "And what might those flaws be?" Minister Roland inquired, puzzled. The system had been in place for centuries. What could possibly be wrong with it? "Credit," John stated simply. "Apart from its coinage, Gringotts operates on greed without any inherent credit system." The room buzzed with confusion. "For instance," John continued, addressing the room, "consider the last attack on Gringotts. How do we account for the losses? Why should wizards trust their money with Gringotts if they're liable for damages?" John's question struck a chord, highlighting a significant oversight in the wizarding financial system. The magic card system ensures that a wizard's money isn't lost due to any mishaps at a particular location. From the moment of deposit, the funds are actively working within the system, John explained. As long as the data is securely stored, even if a magic card is lost, it can be reissued. This is the essence of credit. He went on to describe how the vast internal economy of his domain could seamlessly continue operations, even in the face of catastrophic events, as long as the values recorded on the magic cards were intact. This system, backed by John Wick's reputation, promised a level of security and trust that Gringotts could never offer. As long as I'm here, no wizard will suffer losses like those experienced with Gringotts. The moment your money is on the card, it's secured. John assured them. This new credit system, he argued, required the backing of a powerful institution to enforce it, and John was more than willing to extend this innovation to the entire wizarding world, ensuring a level of financial security and trust that had previously been unimaginable. A groundbreaking organization emerged, heralding a new era in the wizarding world. The International Union of Wizards Financial Center, home to the first bank of magical savings. One might wonder, wasn't Gringotts the first of its kind? Indeed, Gringotts was established by goblins, setting it apart from this new institution, which is by wizards, for wizards, and aims to oversee the financial system of the entire wizarding community. At the helm of this revolutionary venture stood the first governor, John Wick. His appointment marked a significant departure from traditional establishments, promising a future where the financial dealings of wizards were managed with a blend of magical expertise and modern financial acumen. Chapter 679, Seeking Goblin Assistance, Setting Aside Pride. John retained his position as the head of the Department of Magical Education, a key division under the International Confederation of Wizards. This department, alongside the Quidditch Committee, plays a crucial role in the wizarding world. The former oversees the registration and evaluation of magical schools, while the latter manages all matters related to Quidditch, including the prestigious Quidditch World Cup. The current head of the Department of Magical Education was Roger Spottywood, a distinguished figure characterized by his tall, slender frame, white curly hair, and the elegant purple velvet robe he donned. Lord Wick greeted Roger Spottywood, extending a hand to John. "Please have a seat." The meeting took place in England, and after the assembly dispersed, only the two of them remained in the chamber. Despite the formidable reputation of the man before him, Roger's demeanor remained composed, bolstered by his connections to influential figures in the wizarding world. "Mr. Spottywood, I require your assistance," John began, his fingers interlocked beneath his chin, exuding a sense of ease. "I need you to reach out to 10 magical schools on my behalf." The request was linked to a significant event, the destruction of a magical site by John himself. Roger's initial instinct was to decline, especially considering the timing at the start of the school year. "Please don't rush to a decision," John interjected, his gaze piercing, as if he could discern Roger's thoughts. "My intention isn't to meddle in the department's affairs, but rather to address a concern regarding magical education." "A concern with the schools?" Roger inquired, his voice tinged with skepticism. "As far as I'm aware, the schools are functioning without major issues, except for—" He trailed off, hesitant to broach the subject of magic directly, aware of John's significant influence and the potential repercussions of displeasing him. No, John corrected him gently. "Don't you agree that the lack of interaction between magical schools across different countries is a pressing issue?" He pointed out that while the 3 European magical schools had the Triwizard Tournament to facilitate exchanges, such opportunities were scarce elsewhere. "Magic thrives on openness, not isolation. There should be no barriers to sharing knowledge and experiences," John asserted, his conviction evident. Roger found himself nodding, swayed by John's argument. Indeed, the lack of communication between the 10 schools was a glaring oversight, one that even the Triwizard Tournament's sporadic occurrence couldn't fully address. Moreover, fostering exchanges can expand our perspectives. Take Hogwarts, for example. John continued, seizing the opportunity to critique the institution's past shortcomings, particularly in its approach to teaching defense against the dark arts. The constant turnover of professors due to a curse has resulted in a disjointed curriculum, with many unqualified instructors filling the role, John elaborated, highlighting the detrimental impact on students' education. Roger felt a chill run down his spine as he absorbed John's words, realizing the gravity of the situation. "I firmly believe that the Department of Magical Education should play a more active role in overseeing the curriculum of each school, John stated, his tone implying a challenge to the status quo. Or is it that, out of fear of offending certain powerful individuals, you choose to turn a blind eye? He added, leaving Roger to ponder the implications of his inaction. At that moment, Roger understood the weight of his responsibilities. The Department of Magical Education, tasked with guiding and supervising magical schools worldwide, had often allowed institutions to operate autonomously, neglecting to intervene even when necessary. As the conversation unfolded, it became clear that change was imperative, not only for the betterment of Hogwarts, but for the future of magical education as a whole. The prestigious magic school in Europe once discovered that their graduates were unable to cast the Iron Armor Curse, a fundamental spell crucial for a wizard's defense. This revelation was alarming, yet the Department of Education remained passive. John, who had the authority to dismiss Roger over this negligence, chose not to. Instead, he engaged in a casual conversation with Roger, hinting at his connections with a certain individual and the recent lack of correspondence. "I don't mind that," John said, playing with a quill on his desk before embedding its tip into the wooden table, a subtle display of his power. He stood, emphasizing the importance of magic education as the foundation of wizardry, not just for fame, but for the responsibility it entails. As he left, he tasked Roger with confirming the links to the schools as soon as possible, leaving Roger anxious and overwhelmed. Roger, after a moment of panic, was approached by Reggie Cotmore from the Magical Maintenance Service, offering assistance. Roger declined, still shaken by the encounter with John. Meanwhile, John returned to Silverhand Manor, where he was briefed by Tang Mi on the current affairs. Tang Mi reported the increasing registration of wizards at Silverhand for magic cards, the integration of werewolves into the community, the influence of the Delacour family on the French Magic Society, and the financial struggles of Gringotts. John, pleased with the progress, noted how the increase in wizard registrations would diminish the influence of saints in the wizarding world. This narrative, now refined, presents a clearer and more engaging story of intrigue, responsibility, and the evolving dynamics within the wizarding world. In the realm of saints, sustenance remains a necessity. The magic card, mandated to be registered under one's real name, subtly places John in a position of covert control over the magical world's information network. This network spans the globe, ensuring that no disturbance goes unnoticed under John's vigilant watch. Observing the commotion, John issued a command with unwavering calm: "Bring them to me." Tang Mi, with a smile that never waned, proceeded towards the entrance of the manor. Upon reaching the outskirts, he encountered two goblins, their skin slick with grease. "Shelby, I demand to see John Wick. Grant me entry." The speaker was Lannis, the esteemed manager of Gringotts. Despite his high position, he found himself halted by several werewolf security guards, an unusual occurrence for someone of his stature. Tang Mi cast a casual yet menacing glance at him, his tone laced with danger. "You wish to see whom?" Lannis, momentarily confused, corrected himself. "I meant, Your Excellency Wick." He had barely finished his sentence when he noticed the unmistakable threat in the werewolf's eyes. This was the domain of the Second King, where disrespect was tantamount to a death wish. "Very well," Tang Mi gestured for the guards to stand down, his voice calm yet firm. "I wouldn't want to be reprimanded for allowing fools to enter." Lannis's anger bubbled up, but Griffook, ever perceptive, restrained him. The two goblins were then escorted into the Silverhand Manor by Tang Mi. "Your Excellency Wick, I am Lannis, manager of Gringotts," Lannis announced upon entry, his eyes greedily scanning the opulent surroundings of the Silverhand Manor. John, engrossed in a book, merely lifted a finger to acknowledge the introduction. Griffook, understanding the gesture, quickly silenced Lannis. In silence, they watched as John methodically turned the pages of his book. The sound of flipping pages filled the quiet living room, creating an atmosphere of anticipation. Lannis attempted to speak several times, only to be hushed by Griffook each time. Finally, as John turned to the last page and closed the book, he lifted his gaze to the two goblins. "If you are a weak person seeking assistance, you must shed your arrogance before a stronger individual," John stated, his voice carrying a weight of authority and wisdom. Chapter 680. Mint Lannis had never been so furious before. He exclaimed with indignation, "How dare you treat the manager of Gringotts with such disrespect?" "Oh?" Jon chuckled. "And how should I treat you then?" Lannis, pushing aside the door, raised his voice. "You should show me the proper respect, not leave me to bake in the sun for 3 hours." Jon remained silent, merely observing Lannis with a calm gaze. As the initial wave of anger subsided, Lannis's bravado began to wane, replaced by a creeping sense of fear. His legs trembled, nearly causing him to lose his footing. "Griffook, if I recall correctly, that's your name." Jon's voice was soft, yet carried an underlying threat. Griffook, taken aback, nodded hastily and affirmed, "Yes, Your Excellency Wick." "You seem more astute than Lannis. Perhaps you can enlighten him about who stands before the manager of Gringotts." Jon's gaze shifted to Griffook. Griffook frowned, then said, "You are the president of the International Federation of Wizards, the founder of Johnny Silverhand, and the esteemed Second King. You've omitted one." Jon's voice tightened, sending a shiver down Griffook's spine. Jon added lightly, "The destroyer of Gringotts." "Lord Wick," Griffook interjected, pushing Lannis aside. "Gringotts has no desire to oppose you. We hope for your mercy." It was clear to Griffook that failing to appease Jon today could spell the end for Gringotts. Lannis had foolishly challenged the authority of the wizarding world's most powerful figure over the trivial status of a Gringotts manager. Griffook, on the other hand, had no wish to lose his livelihood. Understanding the importance of a respectable job to a goblin, especially with the ongoing persecution by the so-called saints, he was desperate not to become another casualty. No intention of being an enemy. Jon eyed Griffook. He remembered their previous encounter when Griffook had led him into the Lestrange vault. "What do you propose?" Jon was curious to hear the goblin's offer. Griffook replied, "We hope Your Excellency Wick will show leniency. In gratitude, Gringotts will offer its full support." "Full support? That's insufficient." Jon shook his head, clearly unimpressed. Griffook, taken aback, pressed on. "Gringotts is willing to heed Lord Wick's commands." "It's still not enough." Jon, leaning back, appeared uninterested. "Not nearly enough." Griffook, struggling to maintain composure, asked, "What is it that you desire, Your Excellency Wick?" "Me?" Jon's chuckle was ominous. "I want Gringotts to cease to exist." "Don't be unreasonable, Your Excellency," Griffook protested. "Without goblins, the wizarding economy would collapse." "Indeed," Jon agreed with a grin. "But what I want is for Gringotts to vanish, not the goblins." Lannis, who had been about to interject, fell silent. Griffook, puzzled, ventured, "What do you mean, Sir Wick?" "The goblins will continue to mint coins, but—" Jon's voice trailed off, leaving the goblins in suspense. "The control and issuance of the currency will be managed by the Ministry of Magic." Both goblins were dumbfounded, especially Lannis, whose body shook with rage. This proposal would effectively dismantle Gringotts' authority over the wizarding currency. "Impossible!" Lannis blurted out, unable to contain his anger. "You're trying to drive all goblins to rebellion." "Oh," Jon's response was nonchalant. "Then let's consider the alternative." The goblins stared at Jon in disbelief as he flashed a menacing smile. "Let's see if I can eliminate you all instead." A chilling fear spread through them. A stark reminder of the power and ruthlessness of the man before them. They were at the mercy of the wizarding world's most influential figure, a man who could decree their fate with a single word. Recognized as one of the 3 most powerful wizards in the world, Jon Wick's reputation for ruthlessness was well known, especially after his merciless elimination of the 5 wizarding families. His calm yet icy voice cut through the air. "Elimin, ate them one by one, and the rest will inevitably yield." In the sunlight, his shadow morphed into a menacing, world-destroying dragon, its minions tearing through the air towards a terrified goblin. Griffook found himself paralyzed, unable to move as he watched the dragon's shadow rip his own into shreds. The pain in his heart was unbearable, forcing him to collapse in despair. Beside him, Lannis shared his horror, their faces a testament to their fear. "I'll give you a moment to consider," Jon said nonchalantly, tossing a magic card before Griffook. "Take this back to Gringotts. You'll understand why I'm unconcerned." With a dismissive wave, he sent the goblins on their way, their pride shattered. Back at Gringotts, Lannis and Griffook were still reeling from their encounter. "Why would he give us this?" Lannis pondered, unable to grasp John's motive. Griffook, with a heavy heart, explained, "This is a magic card, a modern tool for wizards to store currency. If we can crack it, we'll have access to unlimited coins." Griffook realized John's message was clear. The monopoly on currency the goblins once enjoyed was now threatened. In response, they summoned the best alchemists and spellbreakers in an attempt to break the card's magic. However, their efforts were in vain. Even the most skilled alchemist in Gringotts couldn't decipher it. The card's internal structure is protected by an automatically regenerating magic that's beyond our capabilities, Lannis admitted after consulting with the top goblin alchemist. Defeated, they returned to John a week later. "Dear Sir Wick, we admit defeat. The card is uncrackable," Griffook confessed. John's response was simple yet profound, indicating he had no desire to eradicate the goblins. Instead, he proposed a new role for Gringotts. Wizards will continue to use currency, and Gringotts will transform into Gringotts Mint. I plan to retain the original goblin staff and increase their salaries. Turning to Griffook, he added, "You could be the first manager of this new establishment." Griffook was taken aback, while Lannis protested, "What about me?" John's reply was straightforward. "If you prove your worth, you could become a minter." He then pressed them for a decision, emphasizing the urgency. Griffook, realizing the opportunity before him, felt a surge of ambition. Once a mere employee, he now had the chance to lead. The magic card had not only challenged their capabilities, but also united wizards worldwide in their efforts to decipher it. This incident hinted at a future where goblins from other nations might look to them for guidance, reshaping their role in the wizarding world. At the Ministry of Magic, the atmosphere was tense as negotiations reached a critical point. Griffook, with a deep breath, made his intentions clear. "We wish," he began, his voice steady, "to be the official mint for Gringotts." The room fell silent for a moment before Lannis, another goblin, voiced his concern. "Griffook, we need to ensure our survival, unless you're willing to risk igniting another goblin war." Griffook, unyielding and stern, didn't show any deference to the former leadership. His argument was irrefutable. Without another goblin rebellion, this issue was merely a question of timing. Lannis knew he couldn't gamble with the fate of their kind. John, observing the exchange, snapped his fingers, and a parchment contract materialized in front of Griffook. "This contract," John announced, "requires the signature of the goblin in charge of Gringotts." He added with a meaningful look, "A living goblin, that is." Griffook's expression turned grave. As a shrewd goblin, he caught the underlying threat in John's words. The message was clear. Any goblin who opposed the contract risked being eliminated. This contract was not just any document, it was a binding agreement for Gringotts, and Griffook realized the gravity of the situation. He was in a position of power, perhaps for the first time in his life. Understanding the stakes, Griffook knew what he had to do. Upon his return, he convened a meeting, calling upon all relevant parties to sign the contract. His actions were decisive, ensuring that Gringotts would align with the terms set forth, thereby securing the future of his people and averting potential disaster.